Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is great to be back with you for the Grand Prix Virtual World Championship 2021 Super League. And although it's been a few weeks since you've heard my voice on it, it's definitely been a very exciting championship all the way through. It's round 15. It's the Circuit of the Americas at Austin in Texas. And that means you're going to get plenty of action and drama as the GPVWC Super League continues to unfold. I'm Jake Sanson. Beside me is Caitlin Penny, and our broadcast director is Tom Stevens. Good evening, Caitlin. This is definitely shaping up to be a very interesting tail end to the championship, but it's not over yet by any means. Let's talk about the car development upgrades as we come into these last four races of the season. Definitely a very exciting time as the cars are starting to get much more closer to the developmental mark. We can see the Edge, Holland and GSR VBM have definitely been going more towards rear wing downforce, as have Red Archer and Burst in the latter stage of the season. And obviously this is going to make things pretty interesting as we come to the more aerodynamic strong circuits towards the end of this season. There's obviously still going to be a few twists and turns in these last four circuits, but that gives you a general impression as to where the teams are headed. In terms of engine development upgrades, this has also been an interesting movement through the 2021 season as we continue to make progress between Valiant, Minotaur, Quasar and Reventon. There have been some very interesting developments and direction changes. Engine mass has definitely been the priority for Quasar and Reventon, but for Minotaur and for Valiant, they've been keeping things very consistent with engine power and boost mapping as they make progress. With 4 races to go, it's still a very open championship and there's still a lot to do. Yannick Bock versus Stefan Rualt is pretty much the main headline. For Yannick Bock, it's about consistency and keeping those podiums reigning in. For Stefan Rualt, he's got to chip away at the Germans' advantage. Colin Spork and Leon Bock have scored well. Jene Simoncic has been winning races very strongly, but he hasn't been able to keep the consistency up as high, which is where his points tally is deficient. He has only got 4 races, really, to try and make some detriment to get it back into the top 3. For Maciej Mlanek, the title is pretty much done and dusted now. It is all but over for him. Fabrizio Gobbi, Lauren Kiersmakers, Wright Kilk and Giuseppe Ragusa can definitely end their 2021 campaign on a high if they score well. For the constructors' standings, it is very close for second place between Holland and Edge Esports. They are tied for second position, desperately trying to chip away at some of those points for Evolution. It is still technically open, but this is the race where Evolution could potentially seal the deal. Burst Esport in 4th position at the moment, ahead of GSR Simracing Centre and Red Archer in the top 6. But there is still a lot of on-track racing to come. Right down to the back, Go Speed ADG And of course, the Green Stripes Racing team still with a point to play here at the Circuit of the Americas. It's one of the most exceptional new circuits to appear in the world of motor racing in the 21st century. A lot of twists and turns, a lot of undulation and elevation changes. A circuit that has been pretty much modeled on some of the more fanciful and more exciting elements of race circuits around the world as well. It's definitely a driver's circuit, Caitlin, and this is going to make things very exciting with 4 races to go.
Indeed, sorry about that, guys. Just had a very brief internet poop, but anyway, you're absolutely right, and I'm so looking forward to seeing how qualifying goes here. I'm not sure if you already said this, Jake, but as well as the main 2 in the championship, Bok and Royal, Spork and the other Bok, Leon Bok, are still mathematically in contention as well, although they would need to massively outscore the title contenders in order to play a part. So today is make or break day for all of those. Realistically, of course, it's still between Bok and Rot, and those are going to be the 2 that I keep my eye on through qualifying more than anything. Now, if you were watching the Japanese Grand Prix, you would have seen a relatively, I hate to say dull race, because GPVWC is very rarely dull. Motorsport is always tense, there's always something going on. Although compared to a lot of the other Super League races of the season, it didn't really have that much going for it. But today, of course, at the Circuit of the Americas, I'm expecting much more frenetic action. This circuit, much higher on the strategy. You've got 3 tyre stops expected, so higher tyre wear, and that of course should mean a more diverse array of strategies in terms of when people put on what kind of tyres, and actually how many people make stops, or how many stops people make, whether they go for 2 or 4 stop strategies or stick with the standard 3. And of course, this is also a track where you can overtake. So yeah, Jake, I'm really looking forward to this one.
I know what you're saying about Suzuka. It's one of those circuits that really is a great driver's circuit. I suppose one of the best ways to describe last time out, and I did see it, it's not one of those races that's adrenaline rush per the second. It's one of those circuits, Suzuka, where in the esports world, it's perhaps a little more rudimentary than it is in the real world, because the level of the competition in Super League is so tight, is so narrow from the front to the back, that there's very little chances for overtaking, because Suzuka is one of those circuits that relies a lot on driver errors, and you don't get too many driver errors once you get to Super League.
Indeed you don't. These drivers are some of the best that I've ever had a chance to commentate on. I mean, a league where you see big names fighting for 9th and 10th is, of course, one that you've got to keep an eye on. In this qualifying session, of course, we're expecting the usual front runners to be up the front once again. They're just heading out on their opening laps. Some interesting names in this field that I haven't seen around for a little while. Thomas Harvey only did 1 race earlier this season. That was the Indian Grand Prix, where he finished 4th, and he is back today. So if that showing from last time was anything to go by, he should be one to look out for. Darius Andre is also here, and of course Darius has been a title contender and a heavy hitter in the Formula Challenge series, 2nd place in the Formula Challenge series so far, and that is a massive step up, because he skipped both the Super League and Super League Lights to come into Super League for this round, racing for Cenobite. So yeah, a couple of names to look out for who haven't really had a chance to prove themselves in this particular championship just yet. And then of course you get the big names. You know, you get your Bok, your other Bok, your Ruhr, and your Spork, and of course don't forget we lost Jenny Simonchich earlier in the season. He hasn't been showing up for the last few rounds. So those are the few names that you've got to look out for. But yeah, I expect a surprise maybe launched here by a name such as Thomas Harvey or Darius Andre.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting names, and obviously these drivers are using these last 4 races of the GPVWC Super League to set them up ready for a title push next season. They want to get themselves into the shop window, essentially, for a top-level drive. Interesting to note, Marco Ferlich writes on the stream that Harvey has a back-of-the-grid penalty, so that's obviously something he's got to carry into the race. What will be interesting to note is whether or not he decides to go and do some qualifying laps to actually figure out where the car is, or whether he will use his earlier practice sessions as practice enough, as it were. He's going to be alongside Matthias Muss in the Red Archer. No major changes through the field, as you mentioned. Obviously, the evolutions will remain as Leon and Yannick Bok. The Holland Racing team has Laurent Kiersmakers and Matteo Kiersmakers is at Edge Esports, which is an interesting dynamic, because you've obviously got the two Kiersmakers now racing against each other in different teams. Stefan Rualt for the Holland Racing team will obviously be the partner of Lauren Kiersmakers. Then you've got Colin Spork for Edge Esports, who is alongside Matteo. Now, obviously, that was very different earlier on in the season, so they're settling in quite nicely there. At Burst Esport, you obviously have Robin Panzar, who is going to be in the car alongside Cameron Roger, and then at Scuderia Basilia, Jeffrey Fournier alongside David Yunt. So the two drivers there trying to work their craft and move themselves up through the field. David Feideck and Florian Gaia still working their craft at Epic Racing, hoping for a decent result as always. Mike Bell for GSR and getting the first laps in. Colin Spork has set the early pace with a 1:30.929. So that's the benchmark for the drivers, as Kiersmakers gets pipped by Stefan Rualt on his first flying lap. 14 thousandths of a second in the first flying lap between Spork and Rualt. Here we go, Caitlin. Stefan Rualt definitely means business.
And the interesting thing there is that Spork wasn't the fastest in any of the three sectors. He was very fast over all of them, of course, but he wasn't the fastest. Fastest in the first was Yannick Bock, who's now 5th. Fastest in the second was Matthias Moos, who's now 4th. And fastest in the third was Stefan Roth, who is now 2nd. So Spork, a good all-rounder there, but it's very, very close up front there. Yannick Bock still with 3 tenths to find in the other sectors. And he is, of course, 5th. So three tenths there, separating pretty much all of the top 5. Also, just a few more drivers completing flying laps here. Thomas Harvey has been out on track and is looking set to complete a flying lap. I haven't actually been told of the penalties that are outstanding for this round, although I'm sure we'll get news of that very shortly. And Harvey goes 4th. Great opening effort from Thomas Harvey, whether that's going to end up mattering or not. Mike Quint about to complete his first flying lap as well, a driver who's been doing well in Formula Challenge, and he goes 14th, so not so well in Super League so far. But anyway, long way to go in the session, Jake. 10 minutes now.
Indeed there is. Marco Felic informs us that Harvey's back of the grid penalty is actually for an additional engine, so that will be the reason why he's going to be starting this race from the back of the grid. But you can see from his raw one-lap pace in the Red Archer that he obviously means business for this one, so expect him to storm his way through as Stefan Rualt, his teammate, bails out of the lap. Sorry, the Holland Racing driver, I should say, not the teammate of Thomas Harvey, because that, of course, is Matthias Muss. But Stefan Rualt running very well along with Lauren Kiersmakers. Not much to choose between those two at all. Just 0.134 of a second at this early stage. There is Cameron Roger for the Burst Esport team. And this is obviously a very important end to the season for guys like Roger. You've obviously got Isaac Clark in the mix there as well for Cenobite. You've got Mike Quint in the Adonis. Jack Mayer, of course, stepping in the Mayer Downward Racing team that, of course, he runs. So this latter stage of the season, you've got drivers trying to put themselves in the shop window for a good seat next season. And obviously teams who have had the start of the season plans go awry, who are having to fill the breach to try and get themselves ready. But this is an opportunity for the drivers from Formula Challenge, from Super Cup, to put themselves into those hot seats for these last 2 or 3 races of the season and to make sure they are a candidate for a decent drive in 2022.
25 of the 26 expected drivers are here. I think the only one missing is the second Green Stripes car. So it looks to me as if we've got all of the cars present except for the second Green Stripes car. The only Green Stripes driver here is Mirko Lucchini, who has not yet been out on track. Anyway, Robin Panstad is about to complete his first flying lap. He went out slightly later than a lot of the others. And judging by his lap count on the right-hand side of my particular screen, it looks as if he has been out and then been back into the pits again before setting a lap. So something wasn't quite right on his first flying run. Maybe had a spin, maybe something wasn't right in the setup. But this time does complete a lap and goes 9th, which is not bad whatsoever. Tomasz Vach is also about to complete his first flying lap with Adriano Opporcini starting his, whereas most of the other drivers in the field right now are in the pits and preparing for another run. Watt goes 15th, and I'll wait and watch Opporcini, although I'm afraid his first sector looks a little way off some of the more competitive drivers. Lauren Kiersmakers with a pretty good first sector. It's about equal with Colin Spork, so maybe that's a lap that we should be watching here, Jake.
Certainly should be. Colin Spork is definitely going to be the kind of driver who will challenge Lauren Kiersmakers for the pole position. Stefan Rualt is definitely one to watch out for. A nice early start for the box, but they are not at the top of the timesheet, 6th and 10th place. But they are in a bit of a position where they can have a bogey round, as it were. There are 4 races to go. And Yannick Bock's advantage over Stefan Rualt. He doesn't have to panic too much about time qualifying. He's one of those drivers that doesn't necessarily have to get himself onto the front row of the starting grid to pull out a decent result in the race. We've seen it time and time again, where he lacks over 1 lap pace in qualifying. He's more than able to make up for over a full race distance. And in terms of fuel strategy and tyre wear performance, he is one of the stars of this season, hence why he is the championship leader. So Colin Spork trying to continue his mark, and that is a beautiful lap time. He finishes off there, a 1:30.733. That gives him an additional little push up the rankings by 22 thousandths of a second. Lauren Kiersmakers just misses out on that pole time. They are definitely finding a little bit more pace in the circuit. Stefan Rualt, quick in the first sector, made a mistake on the second one, so maybe the pressure getting to him a little bit there on that last run. Thomas Harvey and Matthias Mus, the Red Archer twins, still quicker than David Feideck. Good to see Feideck up there in 6th position. I've spoken to him several times this season, and his frustration through 2021 has been similar to what we've seen from him in the last couple of seasons. If he can just get it together in time qualifying and get a decent starting position, he could have some really competitive races. If we see him starting from the top 6, do not be too surprised if David Feideck puts on a charge for the podium this weekend. Here's Moritz Kropp as he continues to push on with the Mayer Downard Racing team. Obviously trying to have a good end to the season. In 17th place, just managing to displace team boss and teammate Jack Mayer there. So slightly awkward conversation later. But no, I'm sure Jack will be very happy indeed with that. Here's Adriano Oppacini, who is one of the final drivers in the field to get a lap time in. Only David Junt and Mirko Lucchini are also not getting a lap time in. But of course, if they're going to be starting towards the back of the grid regardless, then they may just be trying to find where the car is strong over the sectors rather than getting a lap time in. Here's Mike Quint over the line, up to 10th place for Mike Quint. A good lap time there, displacing Isaac Clark in the Cenobite. And as we come into the last 5.5 minutes of the session, Colin Spork's time of a 1:30.733 is definitely going to be very tough to beat, even by Colin Spork himself, who is now pitted in, as has Lauren Kiersmakers. Stefan Rualt may well be trying to push for that extra little bit of time that he could find from the circuit.
Isaac Clark briefly got into the top 10 there. Not bad, considering, remember, he hasn't actually scored a point yet in this series. So even P11 is a pretty good place to be. There's Cameron Roger, currently a little way off his personal best time. Thank you very much to race director Chris Williamson, who's confirmed that not only does Thomas Harvey have a back of the grid penalty for engine-related issues, but so does Mirko Lucchini in that one sole green stripe racing car. Now we're getting into the later stages of the qualifying session, the really important stages. This, of course, is when the track is at its best. Let's take a look at Leon Bock quickly. He is currently a little way down the order in P13, and considering he's 4th in the championship, mathematically still in contention, this isn't where he'd want to be. He's heading down the long straight. This is usually the overtaking opportunity, down into this braking zone here. Because if you end up on the inside, that's great. You have the shorter run around that corner. But if you end up on the outside, that's also great, because you have the shorter run around the next corner. So it's a real kind of switchback sequence of turns. And then you have the switchback, the alternating tightness arena section, where one corner has a shallow first apex and then a tighter second apex, and the other corner has vice versa. Then here we go into the final corner of the lap for Leon Bock. It's looking decent. I'm expecting top 10. It's going to be P9, so not as far into the top 10 as he'd be expecting. His brother Yannick Bock coming out of the final corner to improve. He stays P7, just about misses out on Feideck. Robin Panzer now goes P11. So maybe Evolution just don't quite have as good of a setup here as they have done at previous rounds. They're still going to be in good positions. I think it's going to be down to race pace as to how well they do today.
Absolutely. I mean, let's not forget that there are some teams here that are trying to maximize the raw one-lap pace that they've got to put the car into a decent starting position, and other teams, most notably like Evolution or Red Archer even, who still have strong one-lap pace, but they will be focusing predominantly on the race strategy and how they look after their tyres over the course of a full race distance. Because as you mentioned earlier, obviously, Caitlin, they're going to have 3 pit stops predicted for this race, so they've got to try and maximize where the car is going to be strong over the entirety of a race. They need to look at one lap pace and figure out if the tires can obviously give you a good position to be in for the race, or maximizing how you use aerodynamic and mechanical grip around this circuit is so important. It's a long circuit and there are lots of overtaking opportunities, but there's also a lot of dirty air around the circuit. You need to be in a reasonable position. Track position at the start is obviously very important, but obviously maximizing tire wear and not getting into difficult situations, making sure that wheel spin isn't too big an issue in the slower corners when you're trying to get back on the power. That's where things can really count against you in terms of long race strategy.
Indeed, it can, especially at this circuit. Right, we're now into the final 2 minutes of qualifying, the real crunch zone. I think Opportuni finally is going to complete his first flying lap. Previously, all of them have either been abandoned or discounted, and he puts his car 22nd on the grid. So continuing his little struggles now. But the cars that I'm interested in are the ones that are just starting or just preparing to start their final flying lap. Cars like Stefan Rohr, Thomas Harvey, Matthias Moos, etc. Of course, Harvey, we know, will be starting from the back of the grid, whatever the case. Keersmakers has just exited the pits, and I don't think he's going to have time to get around the track in time to start another flying lap. So I'm not sure what he is trying to do there, but I think he's missed an opportunity. It's all going to be down to what can Rohr do, what can Moos do, and is there any way that they can overtake Colin Spork here?
You're absolutely right. I don't think Keersmakers is going to get another flying lap started. This pole position, therefore, then becomes between Colin Spork and Stefan Ruout. But if you look at the lap time Keersmakers was able to produce, a 1:30.755, he might not be going for a pole position run here. What he might be doing is just trying something to see what the kind of grip over one lap a certain tyre set will give him, because he's obviously on the purples out there on the circuit. So that's obviously going to make things interesting. We don't know what they could be testing out here, but obviously there's clearly a defined reason for going out. Colin Spork is out on the circuit, so he is going to have one final crack at pole position. He's obviously got it at the moment, a 1:30.733, almost 0.2 of a second faster than Stefan Ruout, but he will know that Stefan is out there on the circuit as well, so he's got to try and extend his advantage if he possibly can. Just look at the way the car trembles through each of these apexes as you chuck the car in. That was very, very minimal in terms of the track limits mark there as the checkered flag comes out. So that is the end of the session, but there's going to be a few drivers trying to make up some big gains towards the end of the session. Keersmakers has boxed in again. Maybe they were trying to beat the finish line there, and it didn't work out. But Colin Spork has gone purple in the first sector, so he is trying to increase his own advantage there. And it wasn't particularly impressive from Stefan Ruout, so that's important. But a 23.2 from Matthias Moos in the first sector, so Moos might be able to get himself onto the second row of the grid. Colin Spork, very delicate indeed through that tight left hand. And now you come into the stadium section as you start to get a little bit squirrely. The back end wants to come around on you here. You've got to be maximizing the throttle application at every braking point. You've got to get back on the power just right, and then you turn in at exactly the right moment to catch the apex. It's purple in both sectors for Colin Spork. It's not going to be an improvement by Stefan Ruout by any stretch of the imagination, but Spork may just be able to throw a bit of a gun in the works of all the other competitors out there. Is this a better lap? It is a 1:30.672. Not a bad lap at all, but a bit of a problematic final sector, interestingly. So he could have gone even faster had the final sector gone according to plan. Matteo Keersmakers edges David Fidek out of the top six. Now that could be critical in terms of Fidek's strategy, and Bock has gone seventh. So Bock has found a little bit more on his final lap, 0.4 of a second, as he tries to make up a little bit more ground. Thomas Harvey is fifth fastest, but of course, he will take the back of the grid. So what that does is it elevates Matteo Keersmakers to fifth. Yannick Bock will be sixth position on the grid. Now that is critical, Caitlin, in terms of his race strategy.
Absolutely it is. So Yannick does get onto the third row of the grid. Also, Leon Bock got into the top 10 right at the end there. And that's also crucial because, to be honest, a lot of these drivers would rather qualify 11th than 10th because that gives them a free range of tyres. So Leon will not get that free choice of tyres at the start of the race. Colin Spork, though, off the back of his first Super League victory, is obviously feeling very, very confident, feeling very, very quick, and has proved it once again by taking pole position here at the Circuit of the Americas, and he's going to lead us away for the formation lap when the time comes. Very, very good job from what is still a ridiculously young, ridiculously inexperienced driver compared to all of the other competitors on this grid, beating out the most experienced driver on this grid, in fact, Lauren Kiersmakers, who will start alongside him in second, Jake.
Yes, indeed. Colin Spork just ahead of Lauren Kiersmakers. What a brilliant final lap from Matthias Mus to go into third fastest, just a whisker ahead of Stefan Rualt. Thomas Harvey, but he will take a back of the grid penalty, but he was fifth quickest. Matteo Kiersmakers ahead of Yannick Bock. David Feideck for the Epic team is in front of Dan Stepkowski and Leon Bock. Then Florian Gaia is next up. If you'd have asked the Epic Racing team if they could get both cars into the top 10 at the start of the season, they'd have bitten your hand off. Robin Panzar is 12th quickest, Mike Quint, and then Isaac Clark from Thomas Bach, Darius Andre, Jeff Fournier, and Giuseppe Lino from Moritz Kropp and Jack Mayer. And then it is Cameron Roger from Adriano Opacini. And then the last three, Mike Bell, David Yunt, and Mirko Lucchini. So, what a battle this is going to be for Colin Spork. Essentially, based on raw one-lap pace, this is his race to lose to a certain degree, but he's got a points deficit to make up. For the likes of Stefan Rualt and Yannick Bock, this is a big opportunity for them to lose a massive amount of ground. They cannot afford to let the fact that they are not going to be starting from the front row of the starting grid get in their heads. They've just got to be smooth at the start and not get themselves into trouble. Colin Spork has a big opportunity here, and he's out to take it.
So leave your predictions in the comments if you dare. We've got a little while before the race starts, so plenty of time to get your your thinking caps on. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Lee Davidson says, I'm expecting Sweet Chaos. Flo Gaia wins on his return. Well, Florian, of course, had a decent qualifying session there. Not a particularly exciting one. He'll be starting from, I think, P10 after qualifying P11. Does he... Let's
talk about that a little bit, because the two Epics are in the top 10, Caitlin. That is massive progress compared to the start of the season.
That is true, actually. Sorry, I'm being overly harsh on them. I am wondering, though, does that mean that he gets a free range of tyres because he qualified 11th? Or does it count in terms of where you start on the grid?
Good question.
It's still be P10. Okay, Tom Stevens saying we don't think he gets the free range of tyres.
Right, that's unconfirmed. That's unconfirmed, but we can obviously look into that. By the time they get onto the starting grid, the choice of tyre will obviously make it very apparent how things are currently stacked up. But yes, certainly from the start of the season to where they are now, if you'd have said that both Epic cars would be within 0.6 of a second of the pole position and starting the race from the top 10, I think they'd have been absolutely elated at that. Considering how tricky things were in the early part of the season. So it's great to see them really make a bit of a comeback and a leap forward. And Flo already looks very much energized and resurgent. And it's good to see him back in his A game, as it were, fighting in the top 10. To get into the top 10 of this grid, it is very difficult. You've got some incredible talents in this field in 2021. It's definitely a lot closer this season than it has been in previous years in terms of raw one-lap pace. The results may not necessarily play that out, but certainly in terms of the way that each race has been able to unveil itself, we've had some incredible duels over the course of the season. Be good to have a look at the calendar, actually, and give you a bit of a play-by-play as to how the season has gone so far for each of the drivers leading up to this one. We've obviously had some good performances. Obviously, we had the crazy start to the season in Australia, Caitlin, when Liam Dewal really opened up the gambit and threw a bit of a curveball to a lot of people at this early stage of the season. Then that all unraveled, as we know. Yannick Bock coming up with 3 victories in 4 races at Bahrain, at the Bud circuit in India, and on the streets of Baku in Azerbaijan. Stefan Rualt kept himself in the frame nice and early in China. And then we had the Simracing trio, didn't we? The hat-trick: Austria, Canada, Silverstone. Germany was an interesting one for Yannick Bock to get himself back in the mix. Kiersmakers, a deserving winner at Magny-Cours after a very tough win. The last race win of the season, we think, for Juraj Simicic. And then, of course, Rualt versus Bock continuing a win apiece at Monza and Singapore. But now it's the Colin Spork train, isn't it? He's picked up his first win of the season at Suzuka, and certainly coming here at Austin, he looks like he's got the pace to do this. If he keeps this sort of pace up at Austin and Sao Paulo, if he gets a good result here, and the main two, Yannick Bock and Stefan Rualt, score poorly, this could be a 3-way title fight in 2 weeks' time, Caitlin. This is not done yet.
It absolutely could. I mean, as I said before, we still technically have 4 people in contention here. Admittedly, Leon, I'm afraid, doesn't appear to be as quick as his brother and teammate in qualifying, so it may turn into 3 out of today, or it could theoretically turn into 1, of course, if Yannick Bock scores 11 more points than Stefan Rohr today, and Colin Spork does not score significantly more than Yannick, which I don't think he will do, actually, if Bock scores 11 points. Anyway, in that situation, then Yannick would win the championship today, and it wouldn't go down to Sao Paulo. I personally think it's almost definitely going to go down to Sao Paulo, because even if Rohr has a difficult day, Colin Spork, I mean, has just put himself on pole position, and it could definitely get within 25 points of Yannick Bock at this rate. It's been a really close championship. Because if you looked at that calendar and you just saw, who won each of the races, you'd be thinking, well, Yannick Bock's got to be a long way in front right now. He's got 5 wins to Stefan's 2 and Colin's 1, and I mean Leon hasn't scored any victories yet. But then you look at the championship and you see that Stefan is only 14 points behind Yannick because of his consistency, because of those 3 podiums in a row from Canada through to Germany, and because of those tough races that Yannick's had where he failed to score in Belgium, and then he only finished 12th last time out and didn't start the season in a particularly great way. I mean, Stefan's right there, Colin's right there. It's been a good one, Jake.
It certainly has. It's going to be potentially one of the most exciting race finales Superleague has seen for a long time. And to be back with you for these last 2 races to end the season, it's definitely going to be a real thrill. I mean, let's talk about it. We've got 15 drivers that can score points. It's 25 for the win, 20 for for second place, then 16 for third, 13 for fourth, 11 for fifth. So let's play devil's advocate here. If Yannick Bock gets a 5th place finish and Stefan Rohr fails to finish, then it is definitely going to be pretty much Yannick Bock's day. But Colin Spork is throwing a bit of a spanner in the works there. 25 points for him is definitely going to give him a bit of an opportunity. Let's look at the point standings to try and get a bit of an understanding as to how the points could play out. Let's say, for example, that Colin Spork gets the win. That's going to give him 25 points, and that is going to put him onto a grand total of 196. That would still put him 10 behind Yannick Bock. So he's got to pray, really, that Yannick and Stefan have a howler of a day. He's doing everything he possibly can, putting himself into pole position. He's got a fast car underneath him. He's got to win. This is his last chance, really, to keep the title fight alive. For Yannick and Stefan, they can afford to have a bit of a scratch race. Their big kickoff is going to be at Interlagos next time out. A 14-point deficit is not massive for Stefan Rohr to worry about, but he can make a big dent into that if he finishes ahead of Yannick. So he's just got to stay solid, smooth, and consistent all the way through this race, beat Yannick Bock to the flag, and then he can really give it everything he's got at the season finale 2 weeks from now in Interlagos. For Colin Spork, this is it. It's make or break today.
Yeah, and I personally think he will get it. Of course, it's way too early to say that, and I do hope that I haven't put the commentator's curse on him. But he's really been on the up. I mean, he's had intense ascension to power in GPVWC. Of course, only had his rookie season last year in Super League Lights. Went straight into Super League Lights, straight into the deep end with the biggest team at the time, Cenobite. And immediately, I mean, obviously his teammate Liam Duval dominated that one, but as soon as Liam moved up to Super League, Colin was right there to take over the lead of that team and started winning races there. Moved up to Super League for this year and immediately started taking podiums, blowing everyone away. And of course, in his very first season in GPWC top level competition, he's already got a victory to his name, and now he's going to be starting from pole position once again. So I personally think that if Colin's momentum is anything to go by, then he is going to be very, very difficult to beat here today. Remember though, Lauren Kiersmakers has been a driver who's been there or thereabouts for literally years, and he of course is less than a tenth of a second of Colin Spork in terms of one lap pace. So it's not going to be easy for Colin either.
No, indeed. I mean, check out the constructor standings as well. There are some amazing little scraps finishing off the season. We've got Holland and Edge, who are absolutely neck and neck coming into these last 2 races of the year. And then you've got Burst Esport there in 4th position, GSR in 5th place on 169, Red Archer 135, Adonis 127, Basilia 105, and RSR 96. So there's a lot of positions to make up here potentially. Mayor Downer versus Epic, they want to be the best of the rest, but as you've already seen, Epic are having a really strong end of the season. They could even break into the top 10 in this latter stage of the season. So that's got to be the goal for Messrs. Fidek and Gaia. They've got to try and break into that top 10, and they've clearly got good pace here at Austin. If they can maintain that into Brazil as well, then we may well see them break the top 10. That's got to be their focus and their goal. But there are a lot of these teams from 5th down to about 9th where there's a handful of points available, and they want to make sure, well, certainly from 6th down tonight, is probably more realistic to look at. Red Archer, Adonis, Basilia, and RSR. There's a handful of points there that they can scrap for each race if things go according to plan. So that 6th to 9th place battle could change hands a couple of times over the course of the race, never mind these last 2 rounds of the championship.
Indeed, and then of course you have Cenobite and Green Stripes fighting there at the back. It's going to be difficult for Green Stripes to make up that advantage with only 1 car here today, but we've seen crazier things in GPVWC Super League, so keep an eye on that battle for 13th as well, or 12th rather, in the Constructors' Championship. Right, I should mention actually, this is almost a full-on Constructors' Championship. The only thing the teams don't actually design is the chassis itself. That's standard for all of the cars, but all of the internals, you know, the engine, the aero to an extent, the setup, all of that, the teams of course design, modify, change, upgrade, all of that as the season goes along. The cars end up being actually quite different from each other, not just in terms of speed, but in terms of how they handle and how they go at different circuits as well. And the chassis, of course, just helps to keep it a fair and close competition. And you don't really get things like that in any other sim racing championship.
No, that's true. No, that's true. I mean, I've always felt that this is a great model for, the main form of racing. I suppose the closest element to real-world racing that this gets to with a similar format is probably IndyCar, where all the teams are obviously given exactly the same chassis, and then they have to basically engineer the car and work with the internals of the engine, whether it be Chevy or Honda. It's probably the most similar in terms of single-seater formula, but it definitely gives the teams a big challenge technically over the course of a season, as well as the drivers, of course, and that's what makes the GPVWC stand out compared to some of the other esports leagues out there, in the sense that it is a lot more technical. You've got a lot more mechanical grip and aerodynamic structure that you have to work with over the course of the season, as well as working with the engine and the internals of the car. But you obviously have to make that blend very well with your drivers, and that's why it's very difficult to try and keep the same 2 drivers over the course of the season. It's very important to try and keep that symbiosis going through the course of the season, which is why teams such as Evolution and Epic have been able to keep that structure and make that progress through the course of the season. Always makes for an entertaining development as the season progresses. So we're going to get to see some very interesting battles and challenges over the course of this race. It is, of course, the Circuit of the Americas, one of the newest events in the world of Grand Prix racing at this level. Your predictions are coming in. Interestingly, Josh Downard has written in, I think Jack Mayer will clinch it. Well, stranger things have happened. Marco Furlich also says clinch the DNF in the first 10 laps, apparently. The final system even says there could be a Bottas into turn 1. Interesting. Could be very interesting to see what happens. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But 56 laps of this place are not for the faint of heart. The drivers are going around, and we will start the race in earnest. Colin Spork and Lauren Kiersmakers on the front row of the starting grid. Matthias Mus and Stefan Rualt will be together on the second row. On row 3 behind them, in 5th position on the grid, it is Matteo Kiersmakers, and then championship leader Yannick Bock in P6. David Fidek, a great result for him, in 7th on the grid, and then of course it is Dan Stepkowski who will start from P8. Rounding out the top 10, it is Leon Bock who will be there in 9th position on the grid. 10th place for Flo Gaia for the Epic Racing team. Robin Panzar for Burst Esport and Mike Quint for the Adonis team on the 6th row. Then it's Isaac Clark and Thomas Vack on the 7th row. Darius Andre for Cenobite and Jeff Fournier for Basilia on the 8th row of the starting grid. Giuseppe Lino will line up 17th on the grid for Ghost Speed ADG, and Moritz Kropp will be there for Mayer Downard. His teammate Jack Meyer will be 19th on the starting grid. Cameron Roger will be 20th for Burst Esport. The final 5, Adriano Opacini will go 21st on the grid for the Ghost Speed ADG squad. Mike Bell for the GSR team will be there in 22nd on the grid. Then it is David Junt in the Basilia and Thomas Harvey, who was 5th quickest in qualifying but has to take it back of the grid, as of course does Mirko Lucchidi, who will start from 25th on the starting grid. How much progress can Thomas Harvey make up? And more importantly, can Colin Spork fend off all comers to keep this title fight alive?
Well, we'll see. A couple of updates, Jake. David Yunt will be starting from the pit lane for some reason. He would have been 23rd on the grid, just ahead of the two back of the grid starters, and now he's going to be behind both of them. Also, I can answer my question about whether Flo Gaia gets a free choice of tyres or not, because he is the top runner on an alternate set of tyres. He's on the medium compound there in 10th position. And that's an important one, because not only is he in the 5th row of the grid rather than the 6th, where he would have started if they all started where they qualified, but he also is the top driver on a notably alternate strategy and should be one to keep an eye on over the course of the day. I think Gaia is going to be a real dark horse in this race. Also on alternate tyres, Isaac Clark, and then of course various other drivers towards the back of the grid. No one starting on the full hard tyres, although that's to be expected really, because when you get off the line and do the opening few laps, you don't want to have a slidey, cold set of hard tyres. But anyway, onto the grid come the leaders. This is going to be a good one, Jake.
Certainly is. 8 drivers in total on the medium tyre, namely Gaia, Clark, Lino, Kropp, Jack Meyer, and then, of course, Mike Bell, David Yunt, and Thomas Harvey. Yunt, of course, as we know, starting from the pits. Everybody else on the soft compound. This is going to be an electric start to racing as the competitors get themselves ready for the off. Are we going to see a clean start? We will have to figure it out as the drivers come from the front of the grid. It's Colin Spork. Lauren Kiersmakers wants a good start from the front. This is it. Round 15 of 16 of the 2021 GPVWC Super League. It is all about the start here. Can Colin Spork keep this title fight alive? What can Stefan Rualt and Yannick Bock do from their positions? Let's race and find out. It's underway here at Austin, and it's a cracking start from Colin Spork, but not as good a start as Lauren Kiersmakers, who's going to beat into the first corner. Kiersmakers will go through into the lead of the race, so it's a cracking start from Kiersmakers. Spork, Mus, Stefan Rualt going well. Yannick Bock up to 5th place. A good start from him. A smoking Colin Spork at the start. Hopefully that's going to abate in the first few corners, but an absolute flyer from Lauren Kiersmakers, and he got the jump. We are already yellow in sector 1, so somebody's come a cropper lower down the field, and it's Jeff Fournier. Fournier in trouble at the back in the Basilia. So problems there for Jeff Fournier as he's already gone around, but it's already green. So we'll have to see if that was a major incident or just a slight hiccup as Matteo Kiersmakers runs there in P6. David Fardek doing a good job in there behind Dan Stepkovsky. Flo Gaia dropping to 11th at the start. Leon Bock ahead of Darius Andre. And then it's Gaia, Panzar, Quint, Meyer, Wack, Roger and Isaac Clark.
Yeah, Fournier's incident was contact with one of the burst cars, I believe. And it wasn't Isaac Rogers, it was the other one. And I'm afraid Jeffrey Fournier is out of the race right now. So it may have been with Robin Panzar, actually. It was either Panzar or Roger, but whatever the way, Jeffrey Fournier becomes our first retirement on the first lap of the race. Kiersmakers leads from Spork. Mateus moves up to 3rd, and then Brock and Buck, and we're about to complete the first lap. I think the gap's going to be about 6 tenths.
Thomas Harvey has made a cracking getaway from 24th on the grid. He's now up to P19 already. So the very talented young racer who obviously has competed in the Birolite UK karting series alongside his esports commitments, doing a fantastic job and doing a terrific job. Here's Dan Stepkovsky running in behind Kiersmakers. So Matteo Kiersmakers obviously holding on to that P6 for the time being, but it's Kiersmakers who leads the way. Laurent, that is, for the Holland racing team. And then Spork, Mus, Rualt, Yannick Bock, Matteo Kiersmakers, Stupkowski, Fidek, Bock, and Darius Andre. Good start so far on lap 2 of 56. And already some very exciting moves from a few drivers through the field. Flo Gaia is still the leading driver on the alternate strategy in 11th position at the moment, so he's lost 1 place off the start. David Yunt has caught himself up to the back of Mike Bell pretty quickly, so obviously that jostling to and fro on the first lap has given him a chance to play for the battle. And now they come down the straight. This is obviously lap 2, so the DRS will not open until the next lap around. The drivers are not going to get their ultimate opportunity to move up on the switchback maneuvers too early on. There's Darius Andre trying to get well clear of Florian Gaia, who he clearly feels could be a threat long-term in this race. So Andre wanting to get himself right onto the back of Leon Bock. Bock is now stuck in this situation of the dirty air, Caitlin. This could pretty much end Leon Bock's attack. But I wonder if pre-race, they've already done the math at Evolution Motorsports and already decided Yannick is probably our best bet. So let's just throw all the weight behind Yannick's charge and try and focus in on the team game.
I think they have to now. There's just 14 points between Yannick and Stefan in the championship. But Leon, of course, in the back of his mind, he'll know that he's still mathematically in contention. And let's not forget, he's still in his own fight for third in the championship with Colin Spork, who's taking away a lot of points today, even though he's not leading the race. DRS will be active on this lap, though, so keep an eye on who is within a second of the car in front of them. Right now, there will be a DRS train, which would encompass Spork and Moose. There is a second back to Raw in 4th, but Spork and Moose will both get DRS from the back of Lauren Kiersmakers. But Spork is right on the bubble, actually. He's right on the buffer, so he may well drop back. We're about to see, because we're coming out of turn 10 about now. And down the straight, the DRS zone starts quite late to avoid cars getting really, really easy overtakes, which would be the case if the DRS zone started earlier. And Spork is not going to be close enough for a move. Look in the background though, P4 and P5, Yannick Bock lining up Stefan Ruhl. And that one, I think, is more imminent. But yeah, 3 for the lead on lap 3, with Lauren Kiersmakers in danger of breaking away from Colin Spork and extending his lead.
And let's not forget that Stefan Ruhl versus Yannick Bock is the fight for the championship as well. So the two of them are going to be absolutely at it in the opening phase of the race. They will not want to be defeated by the other. It's all on Stefan Ruhl to try and stay ahead of Yannick Bock. As it stands at the moment, he would only score 2 points more than Yannick Bock, but that could be the difference between winning the championship and losing it by the time the checkered flag flies at Sao Paulo 2 weeks from now. So they've got to be focusing on every single point they can pick up. For Stefan Ruhl, staying in front of Yannick Bock for the entirety of this race is absolutely critical. He cannot afford to drop back behind him, because that will make the gap as insurmountable as you can possibly imagine. When there's 14 points between them with 50 available, you have got to maximize every opportunity possible. If you lose points to him this time, it makes overhauling that points deficit even harder in Brazil. So Colin Spork chasing down Lauren Kiersmakers, who wants to get his second win of the season. But Colin Spork wants the same thing. He wants to end the season on a high and finish his winning streak. 2 weeks ago, he managed to pick up the win, but now he wants it again. And this time he's a lot closer to Lauren Kiersmakers than he was before. He's been working the sectors, getting a good run. He's going to be underneath Lauren Kiersmakers. Is he going to be close enough? Not yet, I fear. So he's going to have to wait for another opportunity, but he's gained a lot of the deficit. And Matthias Mus is going with him. So these three are going to be quite close together once they get to the next opportunity. That is Mike Quint, who was having a little bit of a look there up the inside of Robin Pansar and has not been able to make that overtaking move happen. Flo Gaia is far enough ahead of them that he doesn't have to worry too much about the DRS deficit, as 1.2 seconds is the advantage he currently has. But certainly Kiersmakers, Spork and Mus very, very close together. Now, interestingly, Rualt and Bock are not really close enough to each other to be having a bit of a ding-dong. There's 0.8 of a second between them on the last sector. So that is an interesting little play-by-play. Stefan Rualt staying ahead of Yannick Bock. From Yannick's point of view, he doesn't have to panic here. All he has to do is finish 1 place behind Stefan Rualt in both of the last 2 races, and Stefan won't gain enough points to overhaul his tally. So Yannick Bock is pretty relaxed here, I imagine, pretty chilled, pretty cool. He doesn't have to worry about winning races. He just needs to stay consistent and score points. All he needs is a top 5 finish in these 2 races, which he's currently looking at right now, and he's the 2021 champion.
Indeed, don't panic, Yannick. And of course, if they do finish like this, and it's still way too early to be talking about this because we've got a long way to go in this race, we're only 10% of the way through. But if they were to finish like this, both Spork and Leon would be removed from the championship fight. Right, now we're back onto the straight once again. Spork's a little bit further back from where he was a lap ago, so I don't think he's going to quite have an opportunity here, nor will anyone else in the immediate chain behind them. I'm going to look back to see if any of those other fights may well come together down into the corner. Hopefully none of them literally. It looks as if we're going to have to wait another lap. But another thing is that at this circuit, because of course we have so many different strategies which could be at play today in terms of what tyres you put on when and how many stops you do, this is going to be one of those races where it's all definitely going to accordion together at the end of the race. So even if it does get a little repetitive now, don't go touching that escape button, because we have plenty more racing to go here.
It's looking like we're already seeing a bit of a vintage Fiduk performance as he flies onto the back of Stupkovsky's car. They really seem to have got something nailed here at Austin, and they are going a lot quicker than we have seen them in previous races. They want to end this 2021 campaign in the top 10 of the Constructors' Championship. So to do that, you've obviously got to keep things pretty sharp and pretty smart out there. So the Epic Racing team definitely starting to come together at this latter stage of the season with a little bit more firepower underneath them. And this is all about time management. And as we know, David Fiduk is one of the masters of it. So if he is still in a competitive position towards the mid-phase of this race, do not count him out of a run for the podium. There's still a long way to go, of course, and there are 7 drivers ahead of him. But this is the kind of opportunity that David Fiduk's been waiting for all season long. He's in the draft as well of Stepkovsky, so he may have a good opportunity here. Now, the key problem...
Look at Spork. He goes down the inside of Keersmakers from miles back. He's absolutely launched it, Daniel Ricciardo style, and he takes the lead straight back from Lauren Keersmakers. I did not expect that one.
Beautiful from Colin Spork, and that's timely as well, because there was an issue for Lauren Keersmakers to get well clear at this point in the race, and that has already given Mus and Stefan Rualt a bit of a second wind as well. It's backed up the pack a little bit, so that has definitely changed things. We need to see that again from Colin Spork, because it was a long deficit. He clearly felt enough of this hogwash. I need to properly go for this now and shake things up a bit, and that's exactly what has given Colin Spork this opportunity. So an amazing charge forward as Spork takes the lead from a long way back on lap 6. And that has completely changed the dynamic of the top 5 as Ruart closes up on Mus. Mus closes up on Keersmakers. And Yannick Bock has now got to play catch up. Let's have a look at it on the replay. And we can see that Colin Spork, look, he's a long way back, as you said, Caitlin. And he just charges up the inside. Never mind about locking the brakes. Never mind about the consequences of running wide. He just says, enough. I need to get this done.
I can't believe he didn't lock the brakes there. The brakes are working so well on that Edge Esports car. Now, one thing to consider, he was about the same distance back from Keersmakers that he had been 2 laps prior when he didn't go for the move. So Keersmakers, I think, was in a full sense of security, thinking, well, I've seen that I'm safe when we're at this distance. And then he wasn't safe. Colin went for it, and through he went. So anyway, on to another lap. Keersmakers is now in danger from Matthias Moose behind him. Moose very close, in fact closer than Spork was when he went for the move.
I was just going to say, I was literally going to say, you know, Matthias Moose, he may as well have given it a go, because there could have been an opportunity there to essentially repeat the feat. But he thought better of it. He thought, you know what, I'm not quite as brave as Colin on that particular occasion, and he wants a decent points finish. He doesn't want to chance it. So he obviously decided, you know, let's just play on the side of caution. Meanwhile, Robin Panzer has got a big hurry up from Mike Quint, and Quint has actually been stepping up the game for this for the last few laps. So be keeping an eye on his lap times. Quint has definitely been hustling Panzer as the two of them catch up to Flo Gaia, and that is the difference of the tyre compound on the soft compound compared to the medium compound that we see from Flo Gaia. Now they're really starting to get a little bit more speed out of the soft compound, but obviously the wear is going to be higher. So this is a little bit of Flo Gaia just reserving the pace of the car. He just wants to try and make it go that distance to maximize his strategy. But obviously they've got to work the 2 tyre compounds through the course of the race. So this is a long game that they are starting to play here. That Colin Spork taking over the lead, that's massive, because that's put Stefan Rualt onto the back of Mus. Mus is now hustling Kiersmakers, and I'm not sure Yannick Bock expected that so soon into the race. He's not really been able to go with Stefan Rualt, so that's given them a little bit of breathing space. But watch Matthias Mus. Colin Spork has dropped the hammer, and Kiersmakers knows that Mus is going to be a threat. He tries to break the toe. They're on DRS, and he's going to hug the inside line. He's practically married to the inside apex. Mus is going to go for it, though. He knows that Kiersmakers is... but he doesn't commit to the braking point. He could easily have thrown that up the inside, and I think he would have had enough space in the car to make it happen. Panzar, meanwhile, does go for the inside of Gaia, who goes straight for the switchback. Lovely move. And as Panzar tries to gain a place, he actually loses one. So that is brilliant responsive driving there from Flo Gaia, as Mike Quinn is able to get back on Robin Panzar. So that is a big problem for Panzar. He thought he had him, but that was well reacted by Flo Gaia. There's no way you're going to lose a position like that once it's given to you.
Mike Bell's just become a second retirement from the race. He was running down the back despite starting ahead of the back of the gridders and starting from the pitters, and appears to have just retired the car by his own. And look at that, sorry, into turn one, wide, and that is Matthias Moose running around the outside of Kiersmakers, and they touch wheels, and Moose gets it on the exit. Very good move.
Goodness me, they banged wheels there, and Stefan Rualt looks very fired up as a result of that. He will not be terribly happy. So that is Mus and Rualt, I think. Mus and Rualt. And they were wheel to wheel. They actually banged wheels there. So Yannick Bock is now going to be absolutely grinning from ear to ear, because that's Stefan Rualt under pressure, trying to get the overtaking move done. Rualt had it for about a meter or so. I'd like to see that one again, because Rualt actually had the move done. But then on the exit, Mus got very forceful, and I don't think Stefan Rualt will have been happy about that at all, because that's definitely thrown the rhythm a little bit. We've got a yellow in Sector 2 by the look of it, but it's only a temporary one. But an opportunity to see that little duel between Mus and Rualt, because that was Stefan Rualt's opportunity to really gain a psychological upper hand on Yannick Bock, and it backfired big time between the two of them. And that's now, look how far Stefan Rualt has dropped off the back of Matthias Mus. He's actually falling into the clutches of Yannick Bock. But that is a potential title-deciding incident between him and Matthias Mus, the driver he's not even fighting for in the title fight. And Stefan Rualt was taking a big gamble there as he raced with Matthias Mus. I'd love to see it again, because there on the front. We'll have to look back on it another time, because Mus and Rualt were just absolutely on the lock stops. They actually banged side pods, and Rualt had to veer off to the left to stop the car snapping away in a spin. And for Matthias Mus, he's been able to basically take advantage of the fact that Stefan Rualt could not afford to play that game with Matthias Mus, because the championship is on the line.
Yeah, sorry, I got the two Hollands confused, but they're both there, sandwiching Matthias Mus in third position, and that's the very definition of attack or be attacked. Right, let's see what he does on this next straight. Oh, and I think we've lost a driver from 12th. We've had a spin further back. It's Darius Andre. So Andre's lost both wings, and he was running in 12th position. So that is a bit of an impact to his or to the race, and yeah, it looks like he lost in the essence and just snapped the car into the wall.
Easy to do, easy to do. Let's see if we can have a look at it. Here it is. So a look back there. There's Darius Andre. We're watching on board from Jack Meyer, and Jack Meyer is going to be able to see this up in front. Oh, yeah, you can see how easy it is to lose the car at this point of the course, and he's going to just snap it away. Yeah, you could just see it as Darius Andre loses the car completely in the midst. Now let's ride on board with him and see how it got away. You can see the car is already quite loose as he comes through the right. Hugs the apex for the second time, and that's when the car snaps away. Nothing you can do at that point.
And also his teammate Isaac Clark has been in for a very early pit stop, so potential four-stop potential in that one. It's a risky one, but since he was a little way back in the race anyway, and not fighting for championship honours or anything like that, I think it may well be worth taking a risk today. Okay, lap 11 in the race. Spork's lead is up to 4 seconds, very nearly. It's 3.6 or so, and that is a very, very big lead, considering he only got past Kiersmakers 4 or 5 laps ago. And that, of course, means that Kiersmakers is now even more vulnerable to Moose, Roll, etc. behind him. In fact, that chain seems to go all the way back to 6th, almost 7th position. So still everyone really kind of bunched up, except for Spork, who's giving them all the Suzuka treatment. Right, onto the straight once again. Rear wing opens for Moose and Rural. Also on the last lap I was watching Quint having to fend off Flo Gaia quite desperately. There seems to be a bit more breathing room between them now. Fidok goes around the outside of Stepkovsky and finds the curb. It's important not to run it over the curb. He's on the inside line, and that's going to be a move, I think. And he does get it. P7.
That is a legendary overtaking move. It's so hard to get that right because it's so dirty offline on the way through that left-hander. Fidek had to have full confidence that the car was going to give him traction on the exit there to be able to deliver the exit speed he needed to finish off that move. That was really well timed by David Fidek. As into the pits. Now that is a pit from Mus. So Matthias Mus decides he's going to be the first one to make the big pit stop there. I've got a monitor beside the monitor I'm watching it so I can see the move again. And Fidek, absolutely beautiful overtaking move. That is what the difference can make with experience and just confidence in the machinery. So a good stop from Matthias Mus. He should get out in about 17th position. Stepkovsky decides to come into the pits at the same time. So Matthias Mus will get out on circuit and rejoins 18th. So that puts him out behind Lucchini. And that's okay. He doesn't need to worry too much about Mirko Lucchini. He'll probably be a little bit held up by him. Oh, a little bit of a twitch there from Robin Panzar, as he has still got a pressure there, this time from Jack Mayer. So Jack Mayer obviously trying to make a push for the opportunity to overtake past Robin Panzar. But this is very twisty and very tight in the midfield section. You've got a big battle going on. We've gone yellow in Sector 1. Has somebody dropped it again in the S's? No, it's only a brief one. So just a quick trip off the road and then back on again. Certainly not the full Andre, as it were. But Robin Panzar is definitely having a good battle. You've got Quint in 8th, then Gaia, Panzar, Mayer, Vach, Roger, and Thomas Harvey all in the mix there. So from 8th down to about 14th, a very exciting battle. And this could go any way for any one of these 7 drivers. They've all got to stay hungry. They've got to look after the cars. And you can see that the pressure is dialed right up to the wick on Mike Quint because he's actually dropped his way through. Oh, that's an overtaking move on the inside there. That is Panzar, I do believe, getting his way through. But into the pits, as you mentioned, comes Colin Spork. So that is obviously the leader making his bid for the pits. And Kiersmakers goes into the pit lane as well.
Yeah, and that means we have a fight on track now between Rural and Buck, who are right together, even closer than they were a lap ago. But as you say, Sport, Kiersmakers, Leon Buck came in, as did Mike Quinn, Cameron Roger, yeah, plenty of cars. I think the yellows may have been for Giuseppe Lino because he's now registering as having DNF'd. He was out of the points as well, and looking back at that, appears to have gone off in the final sector all by himself. Anyway, as for the pit stoppers, they've all got out okay. Spork is on the medium tyres, as is pretty much everyone else. I think probably everyone else who's been into the pits so far. And no surprise there. I think they're just trying to keep their strategy flexible. And it's all going to be down to how well they preserve these tyres now as to whether they do another... well, they're definitely going to do more pit stops, but whether one of those stops is going to be for another set of softer tyres.
Yeah, Leon Bock and David Fidek did exactly the same thing. Crucially, Fidek has actually beaten Stepkovsky and Leon Bock out of the pits. So that is incredibly important in terms of the point strategy for Fidek, because he was behind Stepkovsky, I do believe, at the pit stop. So Fidek has been able to jump Stepkovsky in the pits. That's big as far as this race battle is concerned. Colin Spork has obviously beaten Kiersmakers and Mus out of the pits, but now we've got Rualt versus Bock, but not for long, because Rualt comes into the pits, and so does that is Matteo Kiersmakers. So he comes into the pits as well. Yannick Bock is on his own for a lap. Panzar will probably go through into second position. Flo Gaia likely to go through into third. So they will continue on their way past the pits. And also into the pits comes Moritz Kropp. So they will continue on their way. So Yannick Bock takes the lead. 14 seconds now ahead of Robin Panzar. But what is Ruart going to do on the exit? Where's he going to filter out? Oh, just about where he ended up, but he's side by side again with Matthias Mus. Goodness me, that's close. He tried desperately to get the undercut maneuver, but Matthias Mus held his place.
Very close one. Now Yannick Bock's got some lovely clean air, but some not so lovely blistered tyres. You can visibly see the blistering on the front of Yannick Bock's car, and he will undoubtedly pit on this lap. Also on screen, we saw a little move there. Robin Panzer going past Flo Gaia, and that's for second on the track now, although about P11 in the net order. And we've just lost Adriano Oppicini, I'm afraid. So you would have seen a brief yellow as through Colin Spork coming past Thomas Harvey, so clearing some of the back markers, who of course aren't back markers right now. No blue flags waving because they're on the same lap. And there's a big chain of them here. This is not ideal for Colin Spork, although of course he had enough of an advantage already that it's not going to cost him much compared to his rivals, who may also have to pass this group of cars. Yannick now into the pits, and Panzer, I'm expecting, will probably follow him in. Not entirely sure who's going to be leading up to this lap. It will be Panzer, actually, because he does stay out for another tour of the circuit. And Colin Spork's going to get up to about third here, and a lot more clean air than he had before. So Yannick gets it going. Now, where does he come out, Jake?
This is so important as far as the championship is concerned. Yannick Bock is coming out of the pits. Is he going to beat out his teammate, his main rival? No, he's not, although he's going side by side with it. Oh, he is going to get him. He is going to get him. That's big for the championship. Yannick Bock does beat Stefan Rout as Rout has to go wide at the first corner. Yannick Bock has leapfrogged his main championship contender. It is advantage Yannick Bock.
That was so close, but the clean air desperately helped Yannick Bock there. And Stefan Roel, of course, had to contend with the people that he was fighting, had to contend with the cars who hadn't stopped yet, and it's held him up enough to swap the positions around. But my goodness, was that close. They came out of the pits side by side, which is what you never like to see. Flashbacks to the Italian Grand Prix this year, that is the Formula One race rather than the Superleague one. And but luckily it ended much cleaner than that. Right, down towards turn 11, DRS wide open, and it looks as if Stefan's not going to be able to come back at Yannick on this lap. I can imagine he's going to put aside quite a lot of the rest of his race in order to try to beat Yannick. The eventual position doesn't matter so much to Stefan here. He just needs to be ahead of the main rival, who he's going to take the championship to the final round with at this rate. Right, so 14 points was the gap between them coming into to this round. And I think they're now effective 4th and 5th, which of course would mean 16 points would separate them after this, Jake.
Yes, indeed. Yannick Bock would gain a 2-point swing in his favour, which would definitely make race victory very difficult to attain. It would basically mean for Stefan Rout that he would have to finish third or better, with Yannick Bock failing to score at Interlagos. That's the only way he could make the title go back in his favour. So this is very tricky indeed. In fact, no, it would be second, because if they tied for points, it would be Yannick Bock's on countback. So Rout would have massive pressure on him in Interlagos if Bock finishes one place ahead of him this time, because he would have to be first or second and then hope that Yannick Bock did not score points at all. And that would be a very tall order indeed. Colin Spork, though, is just getting on with the job. He knows that Flo Gaia in front of him hasn't pitted, and he's on an alternate strategy. Robin Panzar's making the tyres go an awful long way. Here comes Colin Spork, charging up the inside like a whirling dervish in the braking zone. Full commitment, full confidence, no problems at all on his fresh tyres. So he is through in a second position. He's going to take the lead of this race without Robin Panzer needing to come into the pits first, by the way things are currently running for Colin Spork. And this is his race to lose now. There's no two ways about that. Thomas Harvey is now giving pressure to Flo Gaia to go into third position, as Jack Mayer makes a good move there on the inside of Cameron Roger, but then he completely stuffs the exit, just overshoots. That was a little bit of lock on the brakes there, I think, just to get the car traveling a little bit too quickly into the actual interior of the apex, and that just rolled the car off onto the runoff area, and that was enough to cost Jack Mayer the move that he had made. Now into the pits comes Panzer, and also in comes Thomas Harvey. So both drivers electing to make the pit stop, and that gives Colin Spork back the lead of this race. Flo Gaia is on an alternate strategy, as we know, and it means that we're going to get Kiersmakers, Mus Bock and Stefan Rout is what I meant to say. David Feidek is next up. Now that's big, because Feidek is now effectively P6 now, I do believe. So Feidek has made some big progress in this first stint.
Yeah, absolutely. And so has, of course, as we're about to see, Lauren Keersmakers make a move on Flow Guys. Not even going to use the DRS for it. Oh, that's a little risky.
Oh.
And wide goes Gaia, and he'll be hoping he doesn't come back at him, but through goes Matthias Moose, so that puts pay to that one. Now, the battle between Gaia and Harvey that we saw just now is actually quite important, more so than it looked, as in the background that is also Yannick Bock going past Slow Gaia. But yeah, it was more important than it looked because that was the battle to be the top driver who started on medium tyres. And considering that Harvey came from the very back of the grid and is now very much a contender for a top 10 in the race, that is pretty impressive. Right, Thomas Vogt and Cam Roger just banged wheels a little going over that. Oh dear, they're going to bang wheels again in the arena section. Sorry. Vogt and Roger, of course, fighting lower down in the points.
There goes Gaia into pit road. So Gaia's made his bid for the pits. Now, Caitlin, that move that Yannick Bock made on Flo Gaia to get past him on that road, I don't think that's the move that's won him the championship, but I do think it's the move where Stefan Rualt has effectively lost it, because essentially that was about momentum there for Yannick Bock. He needed to get well clear of Stefan Rualt and drop Rualt out of the DRS zone to stand any chance of taking the position back from him. Rualt needed to stay as close as possible to Yannick Bock. And I think Yannick has pulled a bit of a curveball there by getting that move done quickly while Keersmakers and Mus were getting by to get past as well. That has essentially given him a little bit of a safety buffer over Stefan Rualt. Look at the gap that's opened up between the two of them. That is much easier for Yannick Bock to relax. He can just settle back and enjoy the race now. He doesn't even have to finish on the podium. He's in front of Stefan Rualt, and he's secured that gap.
Also, not only has Thomas Harvey just jumped Florian Gaia, he's actually put two cars between them. So, you know what I said earlier about Flo Gaia being a dark horse in this race? Well, scratch that, sorry Flo, and replace that with Thomas Harvey. He is looking very strong here, Jake.
Yeah, it's looking really, really comfortable, isn't it? And David Feidek has put on an excellent show here to jump the likes of Stepkowski, Matteo Keersmakers, and Leon Bock. He is looking very tidy indeed. And if something happens to the guys up front, he's got a great chance of some very solid points right at a critical moment in the championship fight when the Epic Racing team are trying to break into this top 10 for the Constructors' Championship with 2 races to go. They only need to pick up a couple more points than their opponents to do that. And they're certainly looking at doing that with flair, with Feidek in 6th position. So this is all going full guns blazing for the team. And they're looking totally confident at the moment. In terms of the raw one-lap pace, everything seems pretty dandy. It's looking pretty serene, actually, to be fair. So this is a very, very solid start to the racing as far as the Epic team are concerned to get themselves into the top 10. Now, interestingly, Jeff Fournier making a note that Matthias lost a lot of time behind Lucchini in his outlap. Now, that is a very good point, and that's why he wasn't quite able to make that leap past Lauren Keersmakers, which could have definitely benefited him and certainly given him a chance to take 2nd position. That would have been his opportunity there. As we go on board with Dan Stepkowski, who is having a good run in the RSR machine in front of Matteo Keersmakers. Are we about to see Keersmakers throw this up the inside? He's not quite close enough, so Stepkowski still has this nice opportunity to keep the rhythm flowing. He's trying to get back on terms with David Feidek. He would have been kicking himself that he lost ground to him in that first stint. So this is obviously now a chance for Dan Stepkowski to get back on the horse and make up a few furlongs, as there is Thomas Harvey. Now, his progress is pretty solid. He's made his way up to 14th now as a result of the first run of pit stops. I think he's still got a little bit more to find in that car. The problem is, once you're in the draft of a couple of other drivers, you're going to really struggle. And that cork in the bottle is essentially now giving him a bit of a headache because you've got Quint, Panzer, Meyer, and Wack in front of him. And that's where things are going to be very tricky. So Jack Meyer in front of Thomas Wack. That's going to be the real problem for Thomas Harvey. He's clearly got a fast car underneath him. We know it's fast because he was able to go 5th quickest in qualifying. Very similar in pace to that of Matthias Mus in the other Red Archer. But once you're in this gaggle of cars trying to make your progress through the field, you have to rely on them. And they're obviously in a very heated battle. Harvey could get stuck in this little difficulty of cars. Stefan Rualt has now banged in a 134.946. He's trying to gain a bit more ground on Yannick Bock. So he finds another fastest lap out of the car. Look at Harvey as we ride on board with him here through the flat out section. You're trying to throw the car in and gain as much ground as possible. You can see visually that he is faster than Thomas Vack, but the problem is once you hit the dirty air off that wing, Caitlin, there is absolutely no traction to catch on the exit of each apex, and you're struggling to catch the car before the back end steps out on you.
In clean air, I actually think Thomas Harvey might be the fastest car on track right now. He had the fastest lap. Watch this as he passes Thomas Vack on the straight. I think he's going to do it. Up the inside, that one looks to be relatively straightforward. Also in the background, you see one going on there between Flo Gaia and Cam Roger. But yeah, Thomas Harvey did have the fastest lap actually, which was very impressive. And of course, when he got held up in traffic, he didn't have a chance to improve that. And it was just set by David Fiduk. And now it's been set by Colin Spork. So it's swapping hands after the first pit cycle. And no real surprise there. But yeah, some unexpected names taking that before Spork suddenly became just the second driver to do a lap in under 1 minute 35. Right, another lap of racing. We're not even halfway through the race yet, so still plenty more action to come, plenty more strategy options to be explored. And the cars that I'm really looking for right now are firstly Fiduk, because he is looking very, very quick. Secondly, you've got, of course, that fight first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc., which of course we're looking at right now on the screen, and then of course also Thomas Harvey, because yes, he's only 13th right now, but I would be surprised if he wasn't at least 7th by the end of this race, the rate that he's going.
It's a good bet, and looking at his lap times, he definitely seems to have a car underneath him that could get him as high as that. It has been a thrilling opening half to the race so far, because we obviously had Kiersmakers taking the initiative at the start, Colin Spork having to take about 6 laps to catch and then pass him, and then obviously once the cork was out of the bottle, the champagne has started to fly all over the circuit, so to speak. So Colin Spork has now been able to extend that gap, and it's now up to 4.5 seconds between himself and Lauren Kiersmakers. Then of course we saw Yannick Bock make the big push on his undercar to try and get out in front of Stefan Rualt, and it was minimal, the undercut he was able to make, but it was enough to get him out in front of Stefan Rualt, and that of course is big for the championship. The big news behind him, David Fiduk making some big ground in his first stint to push himself up into 6th place ahead of Stepkowski and Matteo Kiersmakers. Leon Bock unable really to play the team game, down in 9th place, so that's a bit of a difficulty for him. Thomas Harvey making good progress, as we know. He's now up to 12th place. He's got past Jack Mayer, so that has got him up another position. And there are 20 cars still running. We have lost Opportuni, Lino, Andre, Bell, and Jeff Fournier, who went out on the first lap, unfortunately, and definitely didn't deserve to be a spectator quite so early in this epic race. So now we're going to see this battle unravel again, as still Mike Quint is holding up this gaggle of cars. Thomas Harvey has now got into the middle of it. Just watch how the car changes direction. You really are on a knife edge. The car wants to spit you out here, and you have got to be so smooth and so rhythmic as the car just tries to fight you in each apex. If you've got a good rhythm, then the car dances with you over those curbs and gives you a massive kickback once you get back on the throttle. Back into the braking zone, turn left, catch a bit of curb, not too much on the apex and not too much on the exit either. And you can see Mike Quinn is absolutely panic stations at the moment. He's trying desperately to break the toe because he knows that's the only way he's going to be able to keep in touch with Robin Panzar. Panzar has a little bit of a look in the hope that Mike Quinn has got one eye on the brake pedal, and Thomas Harvey gets very close to Panzar as a result. This is the real problem for Thomas Harvey now. Getting stuck behind these two is not going to do him any favours. He needs to find a way to get past them nice and quickly and leave them to their own devices.
Indeed. So another lap of racing now. We're getting close to the halfway point. Still not quite there yet. 5 laps to go. And I'm expecting the second pit cycle to start any minute now, to be honest. It's going to all come at pretty much the same time, in a torrent of cars flying down the pits. Here we're riding on board with Harvey. He is now, of course, P12, as we said before. The car we're looking at is Robin Panzer just ahead of us. And then you've got Mike Quint, of course, holding up this big pack of cars. And I mean that with no disrespect. Quint has every right to be there because he's earned that 10th place so far in this race. Right, lap 23, as I say. Colin Spork's laps are still very, very impressive. Every time he comes round, he sets either a very low 135 or a high 1:34, and that is the quickest kind of pace that we've seen from anyone this race so far. Thomas Harvey, his lap times aren't particularly competitive considering he's stuck in traffic, and the fastest lap now has just gone the way of Florian Gaia, who's pitted, and he's now down in 15th position. So Flo Gaia also making up for lost time here.
Robin Panzar's getting so frustrated sat behind Mike Quint, isn't he? Really struggling to get the car stopped in the braking zone with enough momentum and enough commitment to get alongside Mike Quint. And that's the difficulty. See, Quint is very good at getting off the racing line at the right moment out of the left-hand hairpin just before the back straight. Because you break the toe at that point and there's no chance to counteract it. You've just got to go with the flow and hope that Quint is going to mess up the braking point, because the two cars there in the mix, Quint and Panzer, are very similar in terms of one lap pace, but you gain so much on DRS that Quint essentially has to break the toe nice and early, so that essentially he's got an extra 1/10 of a second or so in his back pocket by the time they get there. Now into the pits comes Thomas Wack, I think it is, that's decided to come into the pits. So he's obviously on a slightly different strategy. The other drivers around him, that's put him out of 14th place. He was about a second ahead of Florian Gaia when he came into the pits, so that's his second stop. But Thomas Wack is obviously trying an interesting overcut maneuver here to try and outfox his rivals. But for Colin Spork out in the lead, this is definitely game and set at the moment. It's not quite match point. He's definitely working at it at the moment. Now Panzar getting right up close in behind Quint. He's got to make the exit count here. But again, Quint moves over absolutely at the right moment. We go on board with Panzar. He's got to make it work this time. This is his best chance he's had so far. Quint moves across to the inside line to try and counteract the overtaking move. Panzar's got to commit round the outside. Is Quint going to leave the door open? No, he doesn't. They bang wheels. Panzar has to stay strong on the inside line, and he's got him. There's nothing Quint can do except just try and hang it round the outside. The back end starts to get loose. Thomas Harvey's got to be very careful here where he places his own car. Quint is going to try and shut the door on the exit. No, he actually gives him enough room. Thomas Harvey can commit to the inside line, and he gets the move. That is an absolute piece of opportunistic driving there from Thomas Harvey. He knew that Quint was going to be vulnerable. Panzar had already got through. He needed to jump on that, and he did. Perfect.
Fantastic stuff, and he's got so much grip at this point in the race. You can tell he's feeling comfortable. His next target is Robin Panzer, so let's see if Panzer can get away, or whether Harvey really is as quick as I think he is right now. On to another lap 25 of the race, and he's all over the back of that Burst Esports car. Right, so Colin Spork has now extended his gap to 5 seconds out in front. We can pretty much ignore his race for the time being unless something happens. Keersmakers actually has just started to not exactly go defensive from Moose in second place, but every time they come out of turn 10, I notice he does pull over to the left-hand side of the track to try to break that toe and not allow Moose to get any closer to him. Especially since Buck and Raw are also, and now Fidux joined the group actually. Right, now let's look at Thomas Harvey as he gains on Robin Panzer up the inside, and indeed does go through into 10th position. So from 24th on the grid, that's where he is now.
Excellent work from Thomas Harvey, and that was very sensible from Panzer as well. I think he has to understand essentially that he's not racing Thomas Harvey in this one at all. Just look at how he managed to get this move done. Look, this is Quint defending Panzer. Panzer goes the long way round. He's already ahead of him as they turn in, and they bang wheels as Quint desperately tries to hold cover. Back to the inside. Harvey switches to the inside line, but he knows that Quint is going to get squirrely on the exit, so he can have confidence in where he can place the car around the outside. Quint is the sportsman here. Look, he gives him enough space to go wheel to wheel with him, and that's enough for Harvey to throw at the inside line. That was good racing from all three drivers there. They could easily have messed that up and been very dirty indeed on the way through, but they were absolutely spot on. Every driver gave each other space, respect, commitment, dedication to the inside line there. Excellent racecraft. That's how it should be, and that is what proper racing looks like.
Thomas Harvey is really showing himself to be a competitive Super League racer here. Of course, finished 4th in the other Super League race that he's done this year. I'm not really sure why he hasn't done any more of them. But anyway, of course, he has been running Super League Lights. Actually won the French round there, and look at this. This is Stepkowski versus, and around the outside goes Mateo Kiersmakers. Kiersmakers up into P7 there. Not a bad move, but yeah, Stepkowski there losing out to Mateo Kiersmakers in the corner.
Yeah, yet another case of a driver deciding, do you know what, you're going to block the inside line, you're going to hold it at vast on the inside, I'm just going to drive right round the outside of you. And more drivers now are figuring out that there's enough space to do that. Look how close Rualt has got to Yannick Bock as they continue to push forward there. So Yannick Bock and Stefan Rualt are going to take their battle onto the circuit as the pit stoppers this time are Matthias Mus and David Feidek. Stepkowski has come into the pits as well, and so too has Leon Bock. So that leaves Bock and Rualt. Now, they could actually have a duel on track here because Rualt is close enough that if he stays pretty much on Yannick Bock's tail, he's got DRS. He might have a chance at the bottom of the straight, but he's got to be careful because obviously this is a long race. You don't just want to chuck it in up the inside on that 27 and hope that it's going to stick because you've got a title to consider. So he may just decide to shadow Yannick Bock's every move. This is about the undercut or overcut. This is not about the overtake on track for Stefan Rualt. He's got to keep Yannick Bock under pressure. Comes onto the back straight. The DRS flap will open. It won't open for Yannick Bock. Now, that's crucial because Stefan Rualt could easily have managed to get himself a little bit closer to Yannick Bock. He was lucky there, actually. He was quite fortunate that the dirty air cost him a little bit of time because that could have been third place there for Stefan Rualt. And I think he knows it. Flo Gaia gets the move up the inside of Mike Quint, who again is still having a little bit of an issue, Mike Quint, in terms of overall grip. So some difficulties there already. As now Flo Gaia battling tooth and nail. Mike Quint tries again, and Flo Gaia having to protect at the bottom of the straight. So he does cover the inside line. That's well defended, but it is very tricky still between those two, as Yannick Bock and Stefan Rualt are having a great little duel. Colin Spork pits in, so does Kiersmakers. So Spork and Kiersmakers are into the pits, so Bock and Rualt become the leader and second place of this race. So for Spork and Kiersmakers, no pressure. They just need to get on with their job. And Mateo Kiersmakers comes into the pits as well. So their pit stops are done and dusted. Spork will get out in third place, no problem. So that is Colin Spork into the position he wanted to be in. Clear track, no problems in front, no problems behind. He can just focus on his race rhythm now and take the lead of the race back again from Yannick Bock and Stefan Rualt. What's going to be really interesting is where the others filter out. Kiersmakers filters out behind Harvey. Mus is right with him. 0.4 of a second between them. So again, Matthias Mus cannot quite overhaul Lauren Kiersmakers.
Indeed. Now, Moose came out right in front of Robin Panzer, just about pipped him, and that could have made all the difference. Harvey's just at the first lap of the race again, by the way. Anyway, it's interesting to me that two stints in a row, Spork and Kiersmakers have pitted on the same lap. That's purely coincidental because Kiersmakers right now isn't really racing Spork in this race. Watch Moose as he gets closer to Lauren Kiersmakers into the braking zone. Anyway, Moose, of course. In fact, they all appear to be on medium again.
Sorry, David Feidek and Florian Guy are both on the move in the same corner, a few car lengths apart from each other, as Feidek gets the move on Robin Panzer and Flo Gaia gets the move on Jack Mayer.
It's a good job that the Edge Esports cars didn't double stack because they were both in on the same lap as well. Right, now once again we have Yannick Bock and Stefan Rualt, the two championship contenders, out in front, right together in DRS range of each other by themselves, but of course it's not in the situation that they're used to. Into the pits further back comes Moritz Kropp, but Jack Mayer. I was getting the wrong MDR car there. But even so, Bock and Rualt still fighting for high positions in this race. I'll be really interested to see where they come out in relation to Kiersmakers, Moose, etc. Feidek seems to have lost a little bit of time on Moose in the pit stages, just a little bit, but we know how quick he is on fresh tyres. Here's a replay of what he did up the inside of Robin Panzer, and that's where he lost the time, of course, having to get past Robin.
I tell you what, though, that was a last-minute decision from David Fidek. He had Panzar on the ropes. Look, Panzar's defending the inside line here, and Fidek thinks right at the last minute, no, I'm going to pull a PK on you. Boom, up the inside, and he completely sells him the dummy into the left-hand sweeper. Lovely job there from David Fidek. Robin Panzar doesn't know what's hit him until it's too late. And that was well covered by Fidek on the exit. He really is back to his best, isn't he? Now, Matthias Mus is there behind Lauren Kiersmackers. Still waiting to see who gets the best of it. Now, Rualt has come into the pits as the gap between Bock and Rualt went up to 1.3 seconds. So I think Rualt's tyres just fell off the edge there right on that last lap. Now, that's critical because Stefan Rualt may have been forced into making the pits a little bit earlier. He's tried to go with Yannick Bock and second-guessed him, but the gap has come up to 1.3 at a critical moment in the race there, because that could be Yannick Bock's opportunity. He may just decide, right, well, he's pitted, so I'm going to pit. I'm going to move to cover it, and then Stefan Rualt can't get the jump. Now, where's Rualt got back out on terms on the track? Just in front of David Fidek. There was not much in that at all, but if you look, Mus and Kiersmackers are actually quite a way in front of them. So Kiersmackers and Mus are quite close together. Rualt's lost some time there. Now, this is perfect for Yannick Bock. It's terrible luck for Stefan Rualt at this point.
Colin Spork, once again, fastest driver on the track. First driver under 1 minute 34, because of course Colin would have that to his name. Anyway, the race continues on. We're looking at Leon Bock, who's still a little further down in the race, running P11. Points do go down to P15 here. It's not like Formula 1 where they only go down to 10, but he may well end up getting into the top 10 anyway. He's only just off the tail of Daniel Stepkovsky here. Yeah, it was interesting how they did seem to spread out a little at that pit stop stage, with Kiersmakers getting slightly further ahead of Moose, and then Ro and Fidek dropping back slightly from them as well. But and Yannick Bock's now in the pits as well, so that means that Colin will once again lead this race outright. Now, where does Yannick come out in relation to Stefan Rualt? Last time, of course, he jumped him in the pits by staying out ever so slightly later. Thomas Harvey also in behind him. Let's see what it's like this time. Kiersmakers is going to go through, and then it'll be Moose. But what about Stefan Rualt? He'll
Plenty
be on
of
his
time
outside, and Rualt's going to jump him
Rualt
back.
got him! Rualt got him in the end. Oh, and Bock's overshot! Box overshot on the exit. Fidek's got him.
So first of all, it went one way. First of all, Yannick managed to jump Stefan in the pits, and now he's completely lost again. However,
I think I've got the second monitor alongside me. I think there was a slight hiccup in the pit stop there, Caitlin. I think that's what held Yannick up, because when he was on the jacks, I think he actually had a flick into reverse very quickly. He wasn't moving, but that might just have unsettled him a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Now, another thing to note is that he's now on soft tyres, so not only is he behind Stefan and David, but he's going to be held up for a bit, because his strategy would have been to extend that gap. Now, he's going to go down the inside of Fidek.
He's got to.
Here.
He absolutely has to make this move stick.
And I think he's going to, but he's still behind Stefan Rualt, and he's still losing time and losing strategic advantage for any amount of time, any second he spends behind Stefan Rualt here.
If you thought this championship fight was done and dusted for Yannick Bock, think again. He's really having to pull out the stops. Now, this is what happened in the pits. He's got out of the pit lane. Now, I wonder... Well, this is the mistake he made into turn one. It looked to me as though he just flicked into reverse very quickly when he was stationary in the pits. And look, he's desperately trying to beat Rualt. He can see that is Rualt, and he just messes it up completely on the brakes. He's desperately trying to beat Rualt to the corner, and that is the first weak spot we have seen from Yannick Bock in a while. That's the first big mistake that we've seen from him. But then he bounces back beautifully with this move on the inside of David Fidek, a move he absolutely had to make.
Yep, we'll keep an eye on the lap time this time around as well. He's actually in danger of being out of Stefan's DRS range by the time they reach the straight here. So this is not looking great from Yannick Bock. His last race out actually at Suzuka, he was a long way off the pace for some reason. So this hasn't been the only weak spot we've seen all championship from Yannick, but it's definitely been the biggest mistake that he's made today so far. Yeah, I did notice what you were talking about, where he seemed to have a little flicker while on the jacks. Not really sure what that was about. Right, onto the
It's
straight.
easy to do when you're in
again.
the pits, though, because you're changing. You're trying to make sure you're in neutral. And if you just flick it and you're obviously under pressure, it's very easy to flick it down to reverse. And then that unsettles you. That gives you a little bit of a panic mode in the back of your head. You're trying to get back into a good rhythm. And you're obviously trying to beat your competitor out of the pits. I wonder if he even actually overshot the mark a little bit there and had to get himself back into position. Maybe that's why he was in reverse initially. So a very tricky moment there for Yannick Bock, and it's actually now got him on the back foot. He's about a second away from Stefan Rualt. He's flirting with the DRS zone, but he's not there in it. And now Stefan Rualt, you can see, is right on the back of Matthias Mus. This is perfect for Rualt. If he can get past Matthias Mus at this point and split Kiersmakers and Mus, then he's got his teammate right there in front of him who could play the team game and almost certainly will have a chance to play the team game for him. That will take this title fight to the wire, because if he can get through into second place, Stefan Rualt, with Yannick Bock down in fifth, that's going to be a significant points difference in terms of their scores. That would put Yannick Bock on 11 points that he would take from this race, and it would put Stefan Rualt right up to 20. Now that would get the gap down from 14 points as it is now to just a mere 5. That's how important that move was for Stefan Rualt. If he can get past Matthias Mus at the end of this straight, he can get into third place. The team will surely call team tactics, and Kiersmakers will move over at some point and then through. Look, Kiersmakers trying to break the toe away. This is the team game happening. Mus is going to try and hold that inside line, and this is the opportunity. Rualt has to make this work now on Mus. Mus is going to defend it to the inside line, but Rualt's going for it on the inside line. He takes the place. Beautiful from Stefan Rualt. This title fight is right hot.
Just like, and actually Kiersmakers, that is Mateo Kiersmakers, is now side by side with Stepkowski for 8th. But yeah, that was just like the move we saw David Feiduck pulling earlier on, and it is excellent stuff when it works out like that. So Stefan is now up into 3rd position. We've got Holland's 2nd and 3rd with Matthias Mus now. And he has the difficult challenge of having to fend off Yannick Bock on those softer tyres. Yannick not making as much progress as I thought he would, although being very much held up by the dirty air of the battle of cars ahead.
This isn't going to take long. This is not going to take long at all. They're not going to want to hold Rualt up any longer than they have to. Kiersmakers is going to move over on the back straight here without any shadow of a doubt. They're going to make it look like a legitimate overtake, I'm sure of it. But they've got to get Rualt ahead of Lauren Kiersmakers to maximise the points deficit he's going to take out of Yannick Bock. He could slice the title deficit in half here by getting past his teammate. They're not going to hesitate in this at all. The gap is 9 seconds to Colin Spork, roughly. That's not what he's fighting for. He's fighting to take massive points off Bock. But watch Bock, because he's now got Mus on the run. He's got to make the move on Mus. This is going to be cut and shut. Look, he's even backed off the throttle. This is so easy for Stefan Rualt. He's going to get into second. Kiersmakers plays the team game. Rualt into second place. But watch Bock. He's now got to make the move on Matthias Mus, because this is the pendulum swinging in Stefan Rualt and the Holland Racing team's favour. Bock is under massive pressure now.
And in Super League, you can't have a much better wingman than Lauren Kiersmakers, so this is a great situation.
Yeah,
right,
watch Kiersmakers' lap times drop. He's just going to absolutely drop. Look, there goes Rualt. He's gone. He's absolutely dropped the hammer. Kiersmakers' lap times are going to plummet like a stone here.
And by drop, you mean raise. But
absolutely. I mean, his lap times are going to be way off the pace, and that's because he's basically backing Mus into Bock.
Yeah, watch this happen. Of course, he won't want Bock to get past Mus anytime soon. It helps him that Mus...
Oh, Bock's going to go for it into turn 1, is he? He's going for it into turn 1. This is big risk for Bock. He's got to go for it, but Mus is going to hold him to it. And now Feiduck's coming into the mix. If Feiduck gets past Bock, this is an absolute hammer blow.
Absolutely it is. So he does not manage to find the grit, and Panzer side by side with Mateo into the S's. They're going to lock wheels, are they? It's very, very close. This is the first time we've seen people braving it out through there since the very first lap of the race. Mateo Kiersmakers P7 after a lap that was over a second faster than Panzer that last time around, and obviously he was just feeling desperate and went for it.
If you take me out for a beer and try to convince me GPVWC Super League is dull, you're going to lose that argument. This is absolutely brilliant here at the Circuit of the Americas. Pounding around, having great battles in the midfield and in the fight for the title up front. There is still a good 21 laps of this race to come. Here comes Leon Bock. He's now going to get the chance to throw it up the inside. He thinks better of it on this occasion. Stepkowski is still there in 9th place, but he's got designs on Panzar's 8th place. So this is very close indeed between these 4 drivers. They all want to finish the season on a high as well. Leon Bock can't do anything to help Yannick out because he's stuck down in 10th position. This is not where he wanted to be at all. And this is an absolute sting in the tail for the Evolution team. They really wanted Leon to be up there with Yannick, trying to take points off of the likes of Rualt and Kiersmakers, and it's just not happening. This is Colin Spork's race to lose, as into the pits comes... now, who was that ducked for the pits there? Was that Matteo? No, that was Panzar. So Panzar ducks into the pits. Watch for Leon Bock now, because he's got Stepkowski on the run and on DRS. He might throw this at the inside. No, he's not quite close enough to do that. But Rualt, look at the gap that's opened up between Rualt and Kiersmakers. It's up to 3 seconds already, nearly. So a fascinating team gamesmanship there from Stefan Rualt. He's looking at 20 points now, whereas Yannick Bock is only looking at 11. And that means that the gap will come down from 14, as it currently is, to 5. Game on at Interlagos. And how many points are there between first and second, Caitlin? Isn't it 5?
Well, coming into this, it was 14, but it's going to be less than that now, isn't it?
Well, if it stays like this, it'll be just 5 points between them going into the season finale. And there are 25 points for a win and 20 for second and 16 for third. So Rualt has just been given a second win to fight for this championship. Yannick Bock has got to make places now, and he's got to get on with this. There he is in 5th position. He's got Fidek raining down on his parade as well, so he's got to be careful how he goes about this. Matthias Mus has nothing to lose in the Red Archer, so he is a bit of a danger man here. Yannick Bock has got points on the table. He can't afford to lose this 5th position, but he's got to try and gain, because Stefan Rualt and the Holland Racing team have been absolute geniuses in masterclassing this move. Bock is in trouble. He's in big trouble here. His championship lead is about to slice even worse than half, because it was 14. If it ends like this, his lead will be just 5 points going into the season finale, and that puts him in the danger zone. That means that he will be on the Simrig every single minute of every single day in the lead up to the 2 weeks time finale, in the hope that he can just find something to give him confidence at Interlagos, which is a very different circuit indeed to Austin. Yes, it's fast. Yes, it's got undulation change, but there are fewer overtaking opportunities. So you've got to maximize qualifying. You've got to nail it from the start. And that is a big margin for error.
Then again, didn't Yannick win it into Lagos last year? Or am I
well, he did indeed. Yeah, he did indeed. But then last year, he didn't have the pressure on him.
Very, very true. Anyway, talking of Bock's in trouble, Leon Bock is being caught very, very quickly here by Thomas Harvey, who's well over a second a lot faster than him right now. Harvey is the fastest car on track, easily in the 133s every time. Seeing a brief yellow, so I'm just going to have a quick look to see who that might be. Isaac Clark's been getting out the way for cars a lap ahead of him, so that may have been triggered by that. Anyway, Leon is now, well, he's actually just passed Daniel Stepkowski, so he's now put Stepkowski between him and Harvey. And to be honest, Harvey is more likely to just pass to both of them, especially after his next stop, because he is going to have to come in again. And then, of course, they're all going to be on fresh tyres. And Harvey's going to be even faster than he was before. Here's a replay of what we've just seen. I think that's it anyway. Yep, this is Kiersmakers side by side with Panzer. The fantastic move that we witnessed through the S's. This is Valtteri Bottas style, if you remember that, all the way back in 2013, I think it was. Banging wheels slightly, very nearly locking wheels. And I'm so surprised they didn't end up spinning off into the grass, the gravel, or the barriers.
I mean, fair play. They made side by side through the S's work. Look at it. There's no margin for error here at all. One turn of the wheel in the wrong direction, one rub of the brakes, one bang of the steering wheel in the wrong direction, and both of them are going off the road. And that is just phenomenal how they kept that together. Proper good wheel banging. Let's watch it again for the outside. You got Panzer on the one side. On the outside is Kiersmakers, and look, they just carry the speed. They've both got good confidence in the car. Neither is willing to let up. Bang, bang again, slide, bang another time, and then finally Kiersmakers gets the job done. I mean, that is just full commitment, full
back
chat.
in real time, Box coming around the outside of Matthias Moos here. This is an important one on his soft tyres.
No, you don't, says Moos, but he's there. Oh, beautiful from Yannick Bock. He had to commit to that, Caitlin. That was absolutely essential. Moos was doing everything he could to keep him back. But Yannick Bock will not be denied once he's got his dander up. And that's 2 more points saved. So he's now in 4th position, looking at 13 points. That gives him a little bit more breathing space. That gets the gap down from 14 points to 7 points.
The trouble is, though, how much further up the road would he be if he'd come out of the pits ahead of Stefan Roll? I think he'd be almost on the back of Sport by now. Anyway, here is Bock's move on Moose. He first of all went up the inside of turn 11, and then, of course, reached the arena section and thought, oh no, I'm still on the outside of him. I've got to do something drastic, and drastic he did. Look at that. Moose is still there, but just can't put the power down because Bock has the ideal line out of the corner, which gives him the drive and gives him the place. But as I said before, he's lost a lot of strategic advantage in this stint.
I mean, he has, but what he's done there is essentially thrown his hat back into the ring and said, I'm not done with this title yet. I can still win this. And that was a gutsy move, worthy of a champion. Yannick Bock needed to pull something special out of the bag there, and that was as special as you like. And now David Feidek has got the wind up his sails and thought, hang on a minute, it looks pretty easy, and I've pulled off a harder move than that. So now he's going to try and rain down on Matthias Moos. Up to the hairpin. He's going for a long way back as well. He's trying to outfox Moos and hope that he's vulnerable on the exit. But no, Matthias Moos stays firm and solid. It's like, well, I know you're a legend, David, and you are a bit of a legend in GPVWC circles, but I'm afraid you're going to have to catch me out on a much more lackadaisical day to get one up there. No chance. I'm not going to break for you. So Feidek having to really push the boat out here to get past Matthias Moos. He's clearly had his Weetabix this morning, hasn't he? David Feidek's really got his dander up. Wonderful to see him back in his epic, to coin a phrase, status as one of the big guns in this championship. It's never enjoyable to watch him battle around for 14th, 15th, 16th place. He should be up at the front, and it's great to see him there. So there he is, having a good bit of a battle with Matthias Moos. And don't forget, Caitlin, we've still got one more pit stop to come from these guys, and it's probably fairly imminent.
Well, let's hope it's cleaner than Isaac Clarke's last pit stop. He's just knocked his front wing off on the way into the pits, which, to be honest, is an easy thing to do. It happens way too often, I'm afraid to say, but that's...
Don't tell me he's pulled the full DC at Adelaide, has he?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
dear.
probably going to be his last patch of points gone in this race. But anyway, so back up front, Thomas... Oh, and there's been a collision on the front straight between David Yunt and a car that was lapping him. And that was Tomasz Włoch. So Tomasz Włoch has gone bouncing off the walls and retired. And he wasn't lapping him, they were on the seat. Oh no, he was lapping him. Because David Yunt started from the pits and then ran around at the back.
I wouldn't be too surprised if Yunt parks this. He's just got to try and figure out how much there is in the car on his way back to the pits, because that's on the main straight. And Yunt is about to go through the fastest section of the course. And I have a feeling the car is about to tell him, yeah, I'm not able to do this. Let's see how this happened, Caitlin.
Yeah, so they're on the front straight. This is going to be slightly weird. Yunt's going to pull across to give way to Tomasz Włoch. Włoch's going to try to get his slipstream, and then he's going to drive into him. Look at that. It reminds me of that scene at Silverstone a long time ago in a GT1 race where the Nissan went to show his frustration to the Aston Martin driver and then just drove across his front. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's very silly from whoever it is that's caused that. And it's hard to know who's caused that, actually. It's hard to know if that's Thomas Vac going across to make the overtaking move happen. Let's have a look at David Yunt's steering wheel. This is going to be very telling because Vac, he's obviously going to pull across. Here he goes. He goes left. Vac is going through. Has Yunt... No, Yunt hasn't moved the steering wheel at all there. No movement from Yunt. So that's Vac just basically misjudging how far ahead of Yunt he's got before he pulls right across. He should have just stayed on his line. I don't quite understand why he's pulled across to the left to finish the move.
Yeah, Yunt was giving him the place. It was as easy as it comes. Talking of easy, look at this. Bock is so close to the back of Lauren Giersmakers now, and with the overspeed, this is going to be quite easy. Up the inside he goes. Yannick Bock takes third place now away from Lauren Giersmakers. That's an important one. Matthias Moos, by the way, if you're wondering where he is, he's just been into the pits for his final stop. Goes on to another set of mediums. Now, for a lot of these drivers up front, they've got an interesting thought experiment as Harvey now overtakes Stepkovsky on the inside, which is how long can we stay out on these mediums, and is it worth it to get one final stint on softs in and finish the race on the fastest tyre possible? It's going to be close because we're on lap 15 right now, and I think the softs at maximum can do about 11 or 12 laps. Maybe if you're lucky they'll do more than that, since we're on quite low fuel at this point in the race. David Fidot now coming in, so let's see what he does.
Well, that's fascinating because obviously we saw Yannick Bock take that third position legitimately on the road to Laurent Kiersmakers, and that gives him an additional couple of points there as well, because that will put, well, an additional 3 points, I should say. So the deficit is now only going to be 4 points made up by Rualt, so that's going to drop the gap from 14 points to 10 points. But a few laps ago, that was looking at only being a 5-point gap. So Yannick Bock is really saving his bacon with this drive in the latter stages of the third stint. So this is a really big drive from Yannick Bock. He is fighting to keep his championship lead as high as he possibly can. And this is coming back again to qualifying. We did say, didn't we, that the Evolution car, while it's not the quickest over one lap in terms of raw pace, what they are very good at indeed, and in particular Yannick Bock is so good at, is looking after the tyres, the strategy in the midpoint of the race, particularly on the medium tyre. That's where Yannick Bock's really been able to maximise his race. He was looking a little bit on the back foot on the softer tyres, but on the medium tyres, he's really been able to save his race and get himself back into a title lead that he can be a little bit more comfortable with heading to Brazil, as Panzar goes wheel to wheel here with Jack Mayer. This is going to be tight into the hairpin because Jack Mayer's making him work for it. Into the braking zone, and I think Mayer has to concede that Panzar is far enough alongside him there. He tries to get him back on the switch, but Panzar has the place. But Yannick Bock and Laurent Kiersmakers now both coming together. Now, let's ride on board with Yannick Bock for the pit stop because he had a bit of an issue last time. Let's see what happens this time.
Soft tyres for both of them, I think.
Yeah,
sorry, Jake,
so they're trying to make it work. Now, that's only going to be what? That's going to be 14 laps that they're going to have to try and make the tyres last to the end of the race.
Yeah, I think, well, it's easier now than it was earlier on because of the lighter aspects to the car. Mateo Kiersmakers still goes for the...
Musser's beaten Kiersmakers out. Musser's
Sorry,
jumped on Kiersmakers.
Yeah, so Mateus Moose is up into 5th position now. Of course, he'll be 4th in the effective order when Harvey makes his stop. But Moose, indeed, who was behind Kiersmakers, is now ahead of them. Kiersmakers' race has really gone a little backwards since qualifying 2nd on the grid. Right, now this lap, I think Spork, Rural, etc. are all going to respond. They're all going to go onto those soft tyres to finish the race, unless they want to leave it out a little bit longer just to make sure they can finish it without their entire life dropping off the cliff at the end.
Interestingly, Spork's gap to Stefan Rualt has come down to 5.6 seconds, so he's got a little bit of time left in reserve. I imagine, and I'm predicting, that Spork is going to be the last one in, because he's got that little bit of time to play with, and he may as well lose a little bit more to... Oh, he's coming on this lap, in fact. So he has come in on the same lap as Stefan Rualt. So he's clearly felt, well, if they've gone for it, I'm going to have one lap fresher tyre to the end of the race. So why not take that opportunity? So he's decided to go for it the lap after and just consolidate his lead. He'll get out onto the circuit here with his lead intact, I'm fairly sure. I don't think Tom Harvey is going to take the lead away from him. No, indeed he's not, because he's going to come into the pits himself. So Colin Spork gets out in the lead. Stefan Rualt is coming through. Yannick Bock is catching, but it is going to be Rualt in second place in front of Yannick Bock. No problem at all. And his tyres are going to be one lap fresher. So Rualt has basically banked his second place. Look at Kiersmakers right in behind Matthias Muss again. And Fidek is there for the taking in case these two go for fisticuffs.
And all of the people who are coming out the pits now are on soft tyres, so it's we're about to see some lap record pace here at Kota, I expect. Right, out of the pits as well comes Thomas Harvey. He's in 10th position, and that confirms that he will be in 10th position on merit in this race if things are to continue as they are. Great stuff from Thomas Harvey, and I think he's going to get even higher than that by the time this ends. This is Kiersmakers almost taking a chunk out of the tail of Mateus Moose's car. He'll get the DRS, he'll be a little too far back on the straight, and this is the first time we've seen them go down the straight in this order actually. Usually it's Moose trailing Kiersmakers this closely. David Fidek also right there. He's still in contention for a top 5 here, and as you say, Jake, he appears to have got a lot of his old form back today. Right, 12 laps to go in this race, and it's getting even more exciting.
This is definitely not done yet. The battle for fourth position is a triumvirate, and this could go anybody's way. Mus, Kiersmakers, and Feidek are doing a grand job. Can we give a bit of a shout out at this point to Robin Panzar? What a drive he has been having in this race. He's kept himself very consolidated and consistent throughout, and he is now in P7. This is a great race from Robin Panzar. He's got himself back into position. When the musical chairs have stopped moving, he's managed to leapfrog Kiersmakers, Bock, and Thomas Harvey. Stepkowski has dropped away to 11th position after all of that. So Panzar has actually made the third stint work in his favour. They've all made their pit stops now. So Panzar has actually done a terrific job to keep himself in 7th place. He's going to have a real job staying in front of Kiersmakers and Bock. But I tell you what, this has been a terrific second half of the race for Robin Panzar.
Panzar's only made 2 stops, so he's gone for a very different strategy to the others. And unless he's going to make a really late stop for softs, which is still very possible at this point, then that's a very conservative strategy that he's taken, going very long on those medium tyres. But anyway, he is in 7th place for the
Here we go. Kiersmakers is having a look at Mus. Mus is going ultra defensive to the braking point. But Kiersmakers is not able to get that move done on the inside line, so he's going to have to come at it again. Give this another lap, Caitlin, and this is going to have some fireworks added to it.
Absolutely. Now, Panzar is about to be overtaken by Kiersmakers. That is Mateo Kiersmakers as well, because there is a big difference in pace between the two of them right now. Talking of pace, Yannick Bock just set the first lap of the race. He is not done yet with Stefan Roll. He is not satisfied with just letting Roll get away. I'm expecting this lap to be very fast from Roll as well, though. So, and yes, as they cross the line, they're both very, very quick. Roll actually ever so slightly quicker that last time around, so maybe he has banked 2nd place, as you say. Much closer between Moose and Kiersmakers and Feidek, as well as Panzar versus Kiersmakers. Bock versus Harvey, I think that's probably about to change as well. In fact, we're seeing it change.
That's Kiersmakers and Bock. So Panzar's actually been given a little bit of a breather here because Bock is taking on Kiersmakers. So Leon Bock up the inside line, and Harvey's trying to get himself stuck in there as well. That's a heaven sent for Robin Panzar. Harvey gets through. He's keeping committed. He's trying to get in there on the inside of Kiersmakers. Surely he can't get that move done as well. He has to bail out of it. I'll tell you what, though, that is a star in the making. Thomas Harvey has got his elbows out here at Austin.
Luckily, Keeney's just become another retirement, I'm afraid. So 18 cars remaining, and at this rate, it's there's going to be a fine line between actually finishing and getting points by default. But anyway, here is Kiersmakers up the inside of Moose, and he gets it. No, he doesn't.
Lovely.
It was Moose on the inside, and it's Moose who just about fends off Lauren Kiersmakers into to turn 11. Now we've got Harvey on Bock further back for P8, and Harvey will have the grip into that corner. There he goes. Mateo not able to benefit from that one. Yeah, and you remember what I said earlier about Harvey potentially...
P7, you said. You said
right.
P7.
Look at how he's catching Panzar, and Panzar's on very old medium tyres, so I reckon I was spot on with that. But we'll
absolutely
see.
You were, Caitlin. This is an absolute... Let's watch how Thomas Harvey got himself into this mix. Look at this. This is absolutely brilliant. Coming out of the final 2 corners, that was a mistake there. It was a mistake from Matteo Kiersmakers, and that is what put Leon Bock onto him. Bock tries to get him up the switch. Now watch Harvey. He is so sensible here. He just watches to see what happens between these two. Gains, gives Leon Bock the opportunity to go for the move. Backs out of it initially, sees Kiersmakers fail, and now gets an undercut switch on the inside line. Almost gets up alongside Leon Bock, enough to throw it to the inside line. Full commitment from Thomas Harvey. That was so skillful. And that is not easy for a young gun who's trying to establish himself in this field. Then he gets the perfect move on Leon Bock, but because he threw his weight into that battle, he was able to give them something to worry about, and that's what's put him into this position. He's now P8, and he is making mincemeat of the gap in front of him to Robin Panzar, but this battle is the one we want to watch. Mus, Kiersmakers and Feidek, and for my money, Feidek could get a little bit of a fast one here if those two get too close for comfort.
Colin Spork now with the first lap of the race. He's the first driver in the low 132s. That is fantastic stuff. The only other driver in the 132s right now is Stefan Roll. So 1-2, getting away from the rest of the field, but it is all still on behind them. Keersmakers and Moose complete another lap in the same positions that they were in before. Now, if Colin Spork was finished like this, because I believe you do get an extra point for fastest lap, that means he's got
that was a mistake from Keersmakers. Lauren Keersmakers made a mistake, and now Fidek's going to try and take him on. So Fidek might get an opportunity here into the first hairpin. He's got to wait. Keersmakers is protecting the line, so Fidek will want to get a switchback exit, but a big mistake from Lauren Keersmakers on the way to the final turn, and that's what's given Fidek a little bit of a hurry up. So Matthias Mus will be absolutely loving looking in his rearview mirror. He knows Keersmakers is the one that's blinked, not him.
Yes, well, this would knock Colin Spork out of the championship fight, but only just on countback. They'd be equal on, well, not equal on points, but Colin would be exactly 26 points. No, sorry, he would still be in because there are 26 points on offer in Sao Paulo. So that means, of course, that Colin Spork would technically still be in championship contention so long as he holds on to the fastest lap here. And that sets us up for an absolutely thrilling final race at Sao Paulo. Not that it wasn't going to be already. Anyway, into the braking zone once again. Moose, Keersmakers and Fidok right together, and then the arena section. No moves in here unless you're already alongside your opponent up until that stage. Thomas Harvey's about to leap up the inside of Panzer. I don't think Panzer will make it too difficult for him. Actually, they tag wheels, look at that. So they do just about make it through. Panzer not making it as easy for him as I thought he might.
Robin Panzer has got himself into 7th place and wants to keep this position. He does not want to drop through the pack like a stone through wet paper. He wants to hold on to this position. And Thomas Harvey has got a lot to lose here. So from his point of view, Robin Panzer can keep that car as wide as a Buick and basically give Thomas Harvey all the problems in the world. Harvey's going to be all over him like a bad habit. They come into the final turn. Harvey's going to have DRS here. How hard is Panzer going to make him work? Because Panzer will have no grip on those tyres at all over the course of the last 5-6 laps. So now this is all going to be about where Tom Harvey places the car. And he's got to do this quickly because Leon Bock is going to be right there. Look, there's no speed from Robin Panzer coming off the slow corners. So Harvey's got to be careful where he places the car, where he makes the overtaking move. Surely on this lap, he's got a good chance. But look, as they sweep through the left-right complex, you pick up dirty air and you get thrown out of the wash. So this is very tricky for Thomas Harvey to hold on to, even though he is considerably quicker than Robin Panzer. Meanwhile, Keersmakers is on the run to Matthias Mus. Mus is going to have to try to defend. Keersmakers throws it up to the inside line. No chance of defense again, and he pulls the car right across the line. Fidek's going to come alongside Matthias Mus to the left side, and he's through.
2 places lost. That's got to hurt this late in the race. So, Keersmakers P4, Fidok P5. Fidok doing an excellent job in the Epic Racing Team car, and this is definitely going to elevate them into the top 10 in the championship. Florian Guy currently running P12, so not too far off the top 10. He will still be scoring some relatively strong points here today as well at this rate. So, Harvey now, we're watching once again on the back of Panzer, Leon Bock, Matteo Keersmakers right on the back of them as well. Leon Bock is going to be eliminated from the championship fight today, I'm afraid to say. Although of course you've got to walk before you can run, so I think he'll be focusing more on getting his first GPVWC win if he can next time out. Anyway, down the straight they go up towards turn 1, getting closer and closer. And all it's going to take is a tiny mistake here from Panzer for Thomas Harvey to go through. And with the grip that Harvey has at this point in the race, it may not even take that, Jake.
I tell you what, though, Robin Panzer has put in an incredible defence. He could play for Liverpool Football Club the way he's currently working. This is absolutely incredible from Panzer. That car should be absolutely nowhere, and he is hanging on for dear life like a man with 3 fingers on the precipice. So he is doing his best just to hang on to this from Thomas Harvey. And you've got a very strong offense from Leon Bock and Matteo Keersmakers in tow as well. And Stepkovsky is not that far away either. So, look, Panzer, he's good at breaking the toe early. That's where he's able to make a little bit of ground. But Harvey is just going to get more and more riled up, and he's got plenty of time to do this. Here he goes. He's going to go the long way round. Can Panzer beat him to the braking zone? No, but he's going to commit to the inside line regardless, and Harvey's just going to lose it on the exit. Well done to Robin Panzer. This is an incredible defence.
Yeah, I can't believe what I'm seeing, actually. I thought that Thomas would be long, long gone. Because remember, Robin Panther is on extremely old and hard tyres, whereas Harvey is on much newer and softer tyres as well. Harvey's last pit stop was on lap 36. It's now lap 51. And that just shows you everything. And someone's been off there, and that's a driver who's a lap down, facing backwards. It's David Yunt again, I'm afraid to say, after his incident that we saw earlier on.
So Harvey's not going to be happy about this because Panzer leaned on him through that left-hand hairpin. He's going to try again here. Look, he's just going to launch on the inside. No hesitation this time. And he's going to try and squeeze Panzer to the curb, which he does. And that's it. Job done. Tom Harvey is not going to take that lying down. And he squeezes Panzer on the exit. Now watch how quickly Bock and Matteo Kiersmakers try and make the same move on Panzer. Panzer is not going to find this easy to hang on to 8th place. He gave it everything he had to hold on, but Harvey was always going to take that opportunity if he could sling it up the inside and then squeeze Panzer to the curb. So that was nicely handled by Harvey, but what can Leon Bock and Matteo Kiersmakers do?
Indeed, so keep an eye on this action. We've got Leon Bock all over the back of Robin Panther, and now that Panther has been passed by Harvey, all of his attention will be focused on well, even more defense. We've seen that he's already been very good at it today. Now he's got Leon Bock on his tail. Leon out of the arena. It's attack or be attacked, which is an awful situation for a driver, as we've spoken about many times already today. And we've only got 4 more laps to do after this one. Laps 53, 54, 55. No, sorry, they're still on lap 51, aren't they? Since it's Colin who's on lap 52 and he's past the start-finish line already. So that's where they are. Even so, time running out. And I'm surprised that Robin Panther's got any tyres left at this point. Yes, they're mediums, but 20 laps is a long way to go on one set of tyres at this circuit.
So now this all comes down to the waiting game for Robin Panzer. This is how Panzer tried to defend. Look, this is what got Tom Harvey's dander up. Harvey is there. Look, Panzer just decides, look, I'm just going to lean on you on the way through. And that is how he held on to the place initially, because Harvey was very much in danger of losing the front wing there. So he had to bail out of the move. And so Harvey said, right, enough of this. I'm just going to fling it up the inside and I'm going to squeeze you. Look, he dash of curb on the inside. And then he kicks the car out to the right-hand side, leaving Panzer with no alternative but to get out of the throttle or go on the curb. He chose the latter, and that is what got Harvey through. And look, Harvey has disappeared. He's already checked out in front. So now Bock is going to try the same move on Panzer. He's going to have so much more speed. But then Matteo Kiersmakers actually looks like he's got a better chance on Bock this time than Panzer does. He goes very deep into the brakes as Leon Bock almost nudges the rear splitter of Robin Panzer's machine. So he had to bail out of it again. And look, Kiersmakers is getting racy. He's going to be cheeky up the inside line of Leon Bock. Bock is going to move to cover and they tangle. They get close together. They lock wheels. Kiersmakers is not quite able to get enough alongside Leon Bock to commit to the inside line on acceleration. And that was very close.
But that's what it means to lean on someone. As for the Panzer one, I feel like he had the corner, so no harm, no foul in my opinion. But Leon and Matteo there seem to be getting rather frantic over 9th position in the late stages of this race. We're now on to lap 53 of this race. One thing to note, Stefan Ruhl is actually still gaining quite a lot on Colin Spork, and at this rate, at the very end of the final lap, he'd be within a second of Colin.
He snatches that win. Now watch, look, Kiersmakers decides, I'm going to go for the inside line here. Bock turns in, bang, twice, bang, 3 times, bang, 4 times, bang, 5 times, bang, 6 times. 6 points of contact as they went side by side with each other. That was absolute wrestling at that point on the course. This has definitely been one of the closest races we have seen this season in GPVWC Super League. Excellent racecraft between the two of them. Now, this is fascinating because, as you mentioned, that gap is coming down between Spork and Ruhout. But it shouldn't be because Spork has got 1 lap fresher tyres than Ruhout does. So that shows you how hard Ruhout's pushing. Here comes the move again from Bock. This time he squeezes Panzer on the exit. They come into contact again. Kiersmakers has got a chance into the right. Bock decides to react to it, holds him at best. Kiersmakers has got a chance again in the next left-hander. But again, Bock responds. Panzer is literally rewriting the rule book here.
Now, as for the Royal versus Spork thing, Royal's last lap was nowhere near as quick as his previous ones. Also, even if he had been catching at the same rate, first of all, he's got 2 battling back markers in between them, which is going to be difficult to navigate. And secondly, of course, passing is a different matter. He's not catching anywhere near quick enough. He's still gaining on Colin. He's still proving to be, I think, probably the fastest car on track right now. But it's all a little bit too little too late for Stefan Roth. Still, he's done a wonderful job today, and he's done a lot towards helping himself win the Drivers' Championship recently by keeping it alive going into the final round. And as I was saying previously, we're setting up a wonderful 3-person battle for the championship, a 3-way championship rule going into Sao Paulo, which should be absolutely thrilling, and I cannot wait to see that race. Still, we've got 2 laps of this race to go after this one. Still plenty of positions, yet undecided. Remember, Moose is still right on the back of Fiduk. He's still right on the back of Keersmakers. That's over P4. We've still got...
Here we go. Bok commits again, but again, Panzer is just able to block him at the braking zone. And obviously, that's at the point where Leon Bok is at big risk of losing his brakes. But look at the lack of traction that Panzer has. Now Bok's going to commit to the inside line. Panzer again squeezing. This time it's not going to happen. Panzer's going to drift out wide. Keersmakers should have been close enough to react to that, but now he's going to come round from the far side. Panzer's got no traction left. He really has done the best he can to hang on to this. But look, the back end is desperately trying not to overtake the front at this phase of the race. Keersmakers only needs to wait one more apex. Just look at the travel in Panzer's car. That is so loose. And look, he is swarming around all over the place. He is desperate to shake Keersmakers off. But Keersmakers is going to throw this up the inside. There's nothing Panzer can do except drive into him. And that's not going to work. Panzer runs wide. And that will... Oh, he goes into Stepkowski. He's pushed it too far. And Panzer takes out Stepkowski and himself. That was almost inevitable. And look who picks up the pieces. It's Flo Gaia.
Oh, both of the epics are in the top 10 now. That's epic for them. No... Well, I guess that was a joke intended, but anyway.
Indeed, it is. Well, but look, this is Robin Panzer. He got desperate here. He got so desperate. Look, this is Keersmakers up the inside. Panzer's driven into him. Keersmakers has every reason to be annoyed with Panzer for that. But Panzer on the exit, he just leaves no room for negotiation with Stepkowski. Let's ride on board with Stepkowski. He comes up, he sees this all happening. Look, Keersmakers is perfectly within his rights to turn in. Panzer drives into him, and look, on the exit, Panzer just comes in straight into the side of Stepkowski, and that, I'm afraid, is Panzer just getting too desperate at the end of the race.
Indeed. So, we're on to the final lap of the race now with Colin Spork. He's done an excellent job so far. And let's keep an eye on the battles further back until we get towards the end of the lap. I love the way that Leon... Oh, goodness, that was a big hit. I love the way that Leon did to Robin what Matteo had done to him on the previous lap. He saw it and was like, well, 2 can play at that game. And Robin was like, what did I do?
Caitlin, this isn't over yet. Fiduk has caught up to Lauren Keersmakers. He could get 4th place before the end of this race.
Yeah, well, we're on the final lap. He's got another DRS zone or 2 to go, and he's right there, isn't he?
This is an absolutely fabulous end to the race, and we've still got Bok versus Keersmakers. That's Leon Bok versus Matteo Keersmakers. They're fired up on the last lap as well. This race has had it all. It's had momentum's shift. It's had 3 title contenders battling for the victory, and they're all going to be on the podium. And we've got David Fiduk back to his best with Epic. This is going to be a move for the position, surely. This is going to be tricky for Lauren Keersmakers to defend from Fiduk. Fiduk's got confidence on the outside line, but he's really going to struggle for tyre life on the exit. Fiduk is going to need to make a bold lunge here, and we know that Fiduk is one of the kind of drivers who'll make one round the outside. He has got another opportunity on the inside. Fiduk is going to try and keep Keersmakers guessing. But it's going to be victory. It will be victory for Colin Spork. He takes it in fantastic style from Stefan Rualt and Yannick Bok. The title fight is going down to Interlagos. But can Fiduk pull this out of the bag in the final corner? It's going to be tight. But Keersmakers is going to try and squeeze Fiduk right to the line. It's going to be on acceleration. Fiduk's got a chance, but it is going to be Keersmakers. He just gets there in front of David Fiduk. That is what Superleague is all about. And Keersmakers, yeah, you're right. Look, Keersmakers has managed to get past Leon Bok.
He's got him. He's got him. So Keersmaker's 1, Fenzor Fidok, Keersmaker's 2, and I mean that with no disrespect to Matteo. I'm just saying he finished behind. But Matteo Keersmakers is going to overtake Leon Bock and take 8th on the final lap. So that is your finish. And Leon goes for a bit of a slide, which you're not supposed to do immediately after crossing the line. But here's the move with Keersmakers to the outside line, and he's going to make the corner. Oh, they bang wheels. And then he has the inside line, and that'll be what put him up ahead. But yeah, I'm so impressed with Colin Spork right now. Back-to-back victories. Remember, he is probably still the youngest driver on the grid. I'm not entirely sure. Moritz Kropp is also quite young, come to think of it. But even Colin is definitely the least experienced driver on the grid.
Tell you what, though, Caitlin, what a race. And that sets us up, as you mentioned earlier, for a 3-way title fight.
It does. Because he held on to the fastest lap, so that does mean that he's also theoretically in contention for the championship. And
what could you imagine if we got, this is?
Yeah, could you imagine if we got a champion on it? It's like Lewis Hamilton almost winning the championship on his debut season.
This is absolutely fantastic work from Colin Spork to keep the title fight alive right to the last race. And he has had his moments in 2021, but he is coming good right at the end of the season. And this gives him a real kick for 2022, whether he becomes champion or not. He has totally and utterly deserved the plaudits from this. A great victory for Colin Spork, and he had to dig deep and fight for it. It didn't go his way at the start. He managed to fight himself back into contention. Stefan Rualt, though, that was an amazing drive and great team tactics from Holland Racing to get him into second position when they had the opportunity to. Yannick Bock, though, a feisty drive by a champion in waiting. That brings the gap down from 14 points to 10 points with 1 race to go. And Colin Spork is 25 points away with 26 points available at Interlagos. It's a 3-way title fight. Lauren Keersmaker's a solid drive in 4th place, just fending off the resurgent David Fidek. Welcome back to the big show, buddy. Matthias Muss and Thomas Harvey maximising Red Archer's points tally with 6th and 7th place. Great drive from Harvey from 24th on the grid. Matteo Keersmakers and Leon Bock entertaining us to the line, and Flo Geyer picking up the pieces in 10th place. Robin Panzar a frustrated 11th place, and there could be conversations about that as Colin Spork goes for some donuts. The final point scorers are Jack Mayer, Mike Quint, Moritz Kropp and Dan Stepkowski, who did recover to get the final point. Cameron Roger, Isaac Clark, David Yunt, Mirko Lucchini was out of the race, as was Thomas Vac. I think the two edgy sports cars have hit each other doing donuts. Adriano Opportuni, Giuseppe Lino, Daniel Andre, then of course Mike Bell and Jeff Fortier were all retirements from the race as well. But now we have set ourselves up for a championship showdown at Interlagos between Yannick Bock, Stefan Rualt, and the race winner today for the second race in succession, Colin Spork. It is going to be an absolutely phenomenal duel in the finale, Caitlin.
Absolutely it is. That was amazing stuff. I am so happy for the podium finishes. I'm so happy that that the championship's going down to the final round. So I'm sorry for both. And actually, come to think of it, it was our 3 championship contenders who were first, second, and third, but in the opposite order to their championship positions. Fascinating. Anyway.
Well, that definitely gives us plenty to talk about post-race, and we have drivers to speak to after an epic encounter. Let's bring the drivers in for their post-race interviews. We will start with Stefan Rualt, who has been one of the stars of the race today. Stefan, that was keeping the title fight alive with a gutsy, brilliant, calculated strategic drive. That's one of your best races of the season so far. You must still be just the tiniest bit frustrated. You didn't quite manage to get it to the first place, but what a brilliant race.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I think if you look at this race, I lost it in quali. I mean, I really had a terrible lap there, starting from P4. The race was really good. So, going from P4 to P2 is always good in this league because it's so tight. And I've got to say, I was really happy that I could take Yannick after the pit stop because I was stuck behind the train in the first stint, and then we decided to pit a lap early, try the undercut, and it worked, and that felt brilliant.
I've got to say, without a shadow of a doubt, the moment where that race came to you was that move mid-race on Matthias Muss to get you into third position. That's where the strategy for the team could get you into second place. And, had it stayed like that, your lead over Yannick Bock Yannick Bock's lead over you would only have been about 5 points. So that was a critical moment in the race for the team.
Yeah, exactly. We had a choice to go to softs or mediums, and we chose mediums to just go full send push to try and overtake these guys and try to extend a little gap. And that worked. So that was the idea. And then the last stint on softs, I was catching Colin every lap by half a second or maybe a little bit less. But in the end, I just few laps too short.
It's a difficult situation for you to be in, obviously, but let's play devil's advocate. If you finish in you've managed to get the win next time out at Interlagos, if you've got Yannick in third place or so, there's still a good chance you can turn this around and you can take the victory. But just how critical is it to be on top of that from the start at Interlagos? Do you think you can win this?
I mean, we're still alive, so that was the goal coming into this race, to make sure we score more points than Yannick and then take it to the last round. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this race, to see the title fight go down to the wire, and then let's see what happens. Everything is still possible. The gap is a little bit too big for what I would have liked, but we will do whatever we can, and it will be exciting.
It's very exciting as far as we're concerned, mate. Thank you very much indeed for the entertainment. Stefan Rualt, P2 after an exceptional race. Well done.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
And I tell you what, that really does make things pretty spicy as we go to Interlagos now, Caitlin, because we've got 3 drivers, 25 points apart, with 1 race to go. We're still waiting to see if any of the other drivers decide to make their way through for a post-race interview. Certainly nothing yet from Colin and nothing yet from Yannick. I suppose they're just catching their breath after an incredible encounter. But what a showdown we've got on our hands now.
Yeah, I've just been doing some quick calculations. We can speak to Spook in a second, but I've just been doing some quick calculations. For Colin to win in Interlagos, it's going to take some relatively exceptional circumstances. First of all, he'd have to win with fastest lap, which isn't impossible, because after all, he did it today.
He's done it today, yeah.
He would need Rualt 6th or lower, which of course is difficult, and he would of course need Bock 16th or lower, which is almost impossible unless something goes drastically wrong for Yannick. So I think really it's going to depend on what Yannick does next time out. It's much closer between Yannick and Stefan though, and I'll work that out while we're talking to Colin.
Fantastic. Well, let's bring the race winner into the room. Colin Spork for the 2nd race in a row to take the victory. Still, as one of the youngest men in the field, you are a bit like Lightning McQueen here, because you're up against the 2 big guns who are at the front end of the field, and you are keeping this title fight down to the wire.
Yeah. Hey guys, it's finally it's working out, and I'm getting the results I want to, and I'll be working for. So happy.
I mean, this is a great end to the season. It sets you up beautifully for a proper title push, I suppose, from your perspective, 2022, because, let's put our real thinking caps on here. A 25-point deficit with 26 points available when you've got drivers like Bock and Rualt to race against. The title can be won, but it is such a thin chance of doing that. You must just be using these opportunities to maximize and consolidate and give yourself a really good chance for next season.
Well, yeah, unfortunately I peaked quite late, so the results came in quite late. But indeed, it will be a very exciting last race, and we'll see what when the checkered flag is waved, what will be the result of the championship, because nothing is over yet. But yeah, it will be an interesting one, and I'll push as hard as I can. But yeah, finally, I also got the Grand Slam that I missed last time around, so I'm happy with that one.
So just as we come into the closing phase of the season, Colin, what is it that's made the difference? Is it to do with the car, the way that the car has started to come good towards the end of the season? Is it you gaining the confidence to really bleed into the car and figure out where its advantages are, where its deficiencies are? Or is it a combination of the two? What's made the difference in the last stage of the season?
I think it's just everything coming together quite well. That like the experience that I have now is getting more and more. Like to say, I'm almost ended my 2nd season of Simracing, so getting there and getting the experience. So I think just everything is going better and better every race, and I'm still learning things. But I think just the knowledge that I got it throughout the year as well, and the consistency. I think that's the main thing. So like in the beginning of the season, I still had like a bit of down races and didn't get the result that I hoped for, but now I can consistently be up there. And I think that's the biggest thing that gives me confidence to go for it again.
Well, it's been brilliant, and your performance today was absolutely exceptional, Colin. You really deserve this second win in a row, and a great push now for the end of the season. Congratulations, great job.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Well, fantastic drive from Colin Spork and a great end to the season we have in prospect. We're just going to wait a little bit longer to see if we have a word from Yannick Bock or one of the others. I think we've got time for one more interview if drivers were to come in. But we have definitely got ourselves a great final week at Interlagos to come, and not just from the Super League, of course, Caitlin, because we still have some great action, which will start from Tuesday of next week. We'll have Formula Challenge and Super Cup next week, and then we'll lead into the Super League Lights and Super League in the final week of the season, which will be on the 19th and 21st of October, respectively.
So Formula Challenge and Super Cup have already been decided in terms of the Drivers' Championship. I think the Teams' Championship had for both of them as well. I'm not yet sure about Super League Lights because that hasn't yet been updated on the site I'm using. But I have been doing some calculations for Stefan Roll, and this is looking much more promising because so the lowest he can win from is actually only 6th place. So if Stefan finishes 6th and Bock does not score points, then Stefan still wins the championship despite having 3 fewer wins. If Roll wins, however, he needs Bock 4th, which to be honest isn't hugely unrealistic.
No.
I mean, Bock's finished lower than 4th before, so that could definitely happen, even though we know that Bock is going to be training hard, pushing every he's going to be doing even more time on the simulator than he usually does leading up to this next round. But even so, Royal winning Bock 4th, that is not hugely unlikely. As for the other positions, they're a little harder to work out because that extra point for fastest lap can screw things up a little bit. So we'll have to be a little bit wary of that when we get to Sao Paulo. But hopefully it's a good fight, whichever way it goes.
Final question of the broadcast before we go off air here, Caitlin. Just how critical is qualifying next time? We heard from Stefan Roux out there at the end of the race. He feels he lost the race in qualifying.
Yeah.
That is going to be the key factor in this race. If he starts from the front row of the grid and Yannick Bock doesn't, he's got to feel that's his best shot to win the title.
Well, once again, Interlagos is a track where you can overtake. But it's a difficult one because when you've got drivers who have differing motives, some who are going for the championship, some who literally have nothing to lose and are just going for bragging rights and wins, and then you also have the added bonus of these are some of the best drivers that Simracing has to offer, and therefore will never be easy to overtake. Yeah, qualifying is going to end up deciding a lot, but it really won't tell us who's going to be champion. I mean, if we finish qualifying and they're in a completely muddled up order, it really won't matter in terms of the championship, because what does matter is those 71 laps, I think it'll be, that make up the Grand Prix.
Indeed right. Caitlin Penny, thank you so much for sharing the commentary box with me in GPVWC Super League. It's been an amazing race, and we are going to have an incredible finale 2 weeks from now. So, GPVWC will sign us out in fantastic style as we get ourselves to the final race of the season 2 weeks from now on October 21st. Keep up to date with everything on social media. GPVWC.com is the website, of course, and you can keep up to date with everything happening on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. We have a title showdown in GPVWC Super League, and it's going to be the 3 big guns: Yannick Bock, Stefan Roux, and Colin Spork. Who will be the champion? You're going to have to tune in 2 weeks to find out. I'm Jake Sanson from all the entirety of the GPVWC team. Thank you very much. Tune in next time for the showdown. bye.